Good evening, everybody, and welcome to round one of International Sim Racing Organization's 1991 F1 Series. Our first race takes place in Phoenix, Arizona, which is ironic because the first race of our 1974 series is also going to be in Phoenix. So I guess we've got a Phoenix month going here. Cars are just completing their qualifying session and now going to the warm-up. There's that sweet sound for you. And I caught the end of qualifying just briefly, and I can report to you that Pascal Mikola is going to be on the pole for this race in his Tyrrell Honda. Lining up alongside him, David Jakes in a Brabham Yamaha. Third will be Little Al in a McLaren Honda. And fourth is Dave Miller in a Williams Renault. David Saber rounding out the top five in a Ferrari. So a lot of familiar names, a lot of star power up front. And it appears we have 23 cars that qualified for this race. So no DNQs per the rules of Formula One of the time. Which is nice because nobody likes to go through the process of qualifying and practice and then not start the race. So we got a nice full grid for our first race. Eventually, I will be joined by Alberto Abadis for color commentary. He's still on his way to the booth, but in the meantime, we can take a look at a few facts about the series itself. So, just to refresh everyone's memory, the points table for 1991 Formula One: first is 10 points, second is 6 points, third is 4 points. Fourth is 3 points, fifth is 2 points, sixth is 1 point. There are no extra points given for, say, pole position or fastest lap or most laps led. These are the only points you get. And you also have to finish the race to get these points. Although there have been odd situations where if you complete a certain percentage of the race, you get said points. So... And also, don't forget there is a Constructors' Championship to go with the Drivers' Championship. So we'll be keeping an eye on both of those. So let's take a look at the action on track at the moment. Pascal is in the garage right now, enjoying the fruits of his labor. Here is Jason White. Oh my goodness! Lots of nuttiness going on there. This is probably a good time to talk about the track itself. This is Phoenix. It is a temporary street circuit, 2.312 miles around, or 3.721 kilometers. We'll be going for 82 laps or 2 hours, whichever comes first. And assuming we do the actual scheduled distance, it'll be a little under 190 miles. But this is a typical American street circuit of the time. Lots of right-angle bends, a concrete canyon, so to speak. And with cars that are this diabolical to drive, it'll be definite hard work for everybody for 82 laps, especially with the physics that our own Richard Wilkes has put into these cars. You really, really, really have to look after the tires. You cannot abuse the tires in this mod, otherwise you'll get a flat spot and you'll be in serious trouble. So let's go for a lap here with Jason Whited. Oh wait, sorry, wrong button. Okay, as he comes off the final corner, now he's on the main straightaway. You can see the little markings flashing by there. He's starting a lap. He's driving his Benetton of Roberto Moreno. Coming down to the first corner, you can see the bumps that are there on the entry. Sweeping right. Now back to the left. You can see the tire barriers very, very close there. I'm sure that that's going to claim a few cars before the day is over. Another left-hander, and you see how close Jason has to come to the walls in order to do he's doing a pretty leisurely lap right now, but the line around this course, if you want to be quick, is a line that necessitates that you drive very close to the barriers. You can't just leisurely put the car in the middle. You have to, if you want to be fast, flirt with disaster, so to speak. That's one of the more quicker sections of the course. Coming off this corner, you can see where people have scraped the wall. in previous sessions. This is probably the second fastest section on the course. Turning right, and then back to the left. Not sure what Jason's agenda is here. He might just be trying to get a feel for the fuel load that he has to run, because obviously everyone's going to be on full tanks. And then there's this double apex kind of weird thing at the end of the lap. And that's one lap of Phoenix. So the warm-up period clock is in the corner above. We've got 23 minutes until the start of the race itself, which is pretty long compared to what we're used to in the past. But this, I'm sure this is by design for the admins of this series. This is a chance for everybody to get very familiar with the cars. It'll give us a good chance, too, to also get familiar with the performance of these cars as we go around. So while we have a moment here, we're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away.
Inside, your smooth-running engine is a torture chamber. And under these grueling conditions, only one leading motor oil meets the world's toughest requirements for viscosity breakdown: Castrol. The only leading motor oil that provides maximum protection against viscosity and thermal breakdown. So use Castrol. After all, why make things tougher on your engine? Castrol GTX, engineered for today's smaller cars.
While all engineers earn their degrees in school, ours are also graduates of a higher institution, Formula One racing. Because those who learn to do it right in the first place have a tendency to finish there. The 1991 Acura Integra.
In 1989, the Honda Accord was the best-selling car in America. Let us repeat that. In 1990, the Honda Accord was the best-selling car in America. Thank you.
Get $500 cash back on new Plymouth Voyagers.
And we are back. So cars are now continuing around in their warm-up session. And as we mentioned before the break, this is an excellent time for them to get used to how the cars are behaving on a full load, because obviously they behave very different on a nearly empty tank, which is what they would have used for qualifying. And I'm certain the tire selection is going to be different. We can probably hear more about that from Alberto once he gets in. He should be in momentarily. So we do have one trivia question for everybody. And since we have time, I'm going to bring up the trivia question. You can all have a think about it. We'll reveal the answer later on in the race. So the trivia question involves the Jordan team, who were new to Formula One in 1991. The question is, it's not worded up front as a question. Let me just read what it says. The Jordan 191, pictured there, was originally designed with which engine manufacturer in mind? Was it A, Lamborghini, B, Yamaha, or C, Judd? Now, in reality, the car ended up using the Ford HB engine and did quite well with it, but it was not designed originally with that engine in mind. So it's one of those three choices. Have a think about it, and we'll come back with the answer later in the broadcast. So let's see who else we can pick out here to run around with. This is Jason Whited, as I mentioned before. Anders Nilsson. At speed, there is Ray Radal. Grant, his son, is in the pits. There's Richard Wilkes. David Jakes. This ought to be good. David Jakes driving Mark Blundell's Brabham in this race. And you can tell it's Mark Blundell's because he's got the big MB on his helmet, a la Warner Brothers. So here comes David Jakes down the long straight. And you can hear that really raspy sound of the Yamaha. Downshifting now into the first turn. Taking it very close to that corner. Accelerating now. Heading to the left. This tire barrier here is very close. If you make a mistake, you're in big trouble. Turning left again. Some of these corners, you've got like little or no sight line into them. Turning back to the right again. And then here comes probably the more interesting part of the course, where you have this really dramatic hairpin that kind of unfolds in front of you. And then you head back to the right. This is one of the faster corners on the course, this right-hand bend. Very quick whip to the right. And back to the left. Another nearly right-hand bend. Oops, somebody left some parts there. Another right-hander here. Oh! See? That's how difficult this course is. Even, oh goodness. Even a many-time champion like David Jakes can make a mistake. Don't run down the people, David. No, he's... All right, so in that case, well, that's one of the nice things about this course, is as confined as it is. If you make a mistake, you have the option to go down the escape road, turn the car around and rejoin, and that's infinitely preferable to hitting a barrier and ending your race. You'll lose time, but at least you won't be out. So he's taking another slow lap around. Let's have a look at this from the outside this time. This is the older Brabham, and I believe I have some information on this provided kindly by Mr. Wilkes. Yes, this is the 1990 chassis that we're looking at, and it used the Yamaha V12 engine. Not the lightest of engines, but there will be an upgrade to this chassis, a 1991 version, later on in the series. So, and that's the case also for a few other people. I believe Benetton has a 1990 chassis they're using. Several teams do. So, we'll keep an eye on that, and I've got full notes on that we can go through during the race so that everybody knows exactly what they're looking at. One other piece of information that I'd like to share, and of course I'm really biased here, but big event coming up next Sunday, and I understand that our friend Johnny Aces, Jonathan Asserclint, is going to be broadcasting. It's the Phoenix 150. The 1974 USAC National Championship gets underway. Round 1 of 13, Sunday, January 12th. Check your local listings. Well, you won't have to. It's on the ISO station. Green flag will be at 2000 hours CET. That's going to be our across-the-board time for the green flag of most broadcasts. It doesn't mean that the broadcast will start at 2000 hours on the dot. But, I believe, are we joined by Alberto Abadis?
Good evening, everybody.
Oh, there he is.
Really excited and happy to be here with you all. I'm looking forward to this fantastic season of racing here at our new home at ISO. And
Yes.
This is already shaping up to be a great first race with a big grid, nice attendance, and great quality drivers.
Oh, yes. The top of the grid reads like a quality list. We'll go through the grid in a second because I managed to capture the times right before the qualifying was over. But you arrived at a most fortuitous time because we're talking about the Phoenix 150 that's next Sunday. Just remind
That's
me,
true.
everybody.
We'll be staying at Arizona for a full week.
Yeah, this is the month of Arizona apparently at ISO. But we kick off the USAC series next Sunday at a very, very tricky and tight oval, the Phoenix International Raceway. You've seen that race before in the Kart 88 mod. It is just as diabolical with USAC cars. Really looking forward to that event. The green flag will be at 2000 hours CET. But today it is Formula One, and we're watching on track right now David Jakes tooling around in his Brabham. This is the 1990 Brabham, I'm told. That will eventually be replaced by the 91. I'll be interested to see how David does in this car in the series, because it's obviously got a bit of a weight handicap with that Yamaha engine.
Yeah, it certainly has. Though in Formula One, as we all know, the cars are in constant evolution, and anybody who sees standing still is immediately left behind. And well, this is also a very peculiar race. I mean, together with Monaco, this is one of the two street circuits that we are going to see. That's also Adelaide, but it's a different story there. And well, as you can already see, because David Jakes just breezed the wall, this is a track where, besides the braking areas where you have an escape road, the rest of the track is pretty much very unforgiving. I mean, anything that means breezing the wall is bending the suspension. Anything that is hitting it hard quickly means you will be abandoning the race. But yet, you have to get close to those walls to make the time. You need the leverage, the angle to be able to go around the corners. So it's going to be quite an interesting race. And my three case for this race today are the tires, the walls, and the traffic. The walls, we've already talked about them. The traffic is very important because overtaking here is not going to be easy by any means. You don't have much traction coming out of the corners because of the city asphalt, and you don't have long straights where you can really use the slipstream to your advantage. So if you get blocked by another car and are in a position where there are no blue flags shown and you're really fighting for position, you could very well stay there for the whole race. And while we might be seeing some strategies that involve a pit stop, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to do the same thing, because many cars can with a full tank go the full distance. So that's something that will be a great field leveler, because the quicker cars, they will be using a lot more fuel. And my spies in the McLaren team, for example, have told me that despite those cars being very quick, they are really, really thirsty. So we'll see how that pans out. And the last thing is the tires. The tires are very, very important here. Our Mustang physics builders, Richard Wilkes, has been able to produce some really, really accurate tire models for these Formula Ones, as they were back in the day. So the drivers are now forced to really not just choose the perfect compound that will last the race or the stint that they will be doing, but also to preserve and conserve them. And many people tend to think, and they are wrong at that Formula One is just a continuous sprint, continuous hot lapping all the time. And Formula One in the 91, in the 90s and here in 91 wasn't certainly like that, or not just like that. You had to preserve your tires. If you were pushing the car, they were going to get very hot, very greasy, and even blow up. And you also had to keep in mind that you were starting the race with a full tank with lots and lots of fuel, and therefore lots of weight. And that puts additional stress on the tires, and therefore you had to be conservative at the beginning. I mean, you don't have to lose the train of the people who go in the front if you want to have chances, but if everybody races as they should, we should be seeing the first movements and the people really starting to race only past half the event. So this is going to be a game of patience, a game of precision, and a fantastic race.
Yeah, we definitely saw in the fun race that was done in the I think it was Suzuka. I don't know how many cars ended up.
It was Suzuka, yes.
Yes, I don't recall how many cars finished that race, but it wasn't many. And that underlines the patience end of it that you're talking about for sure.
Yeah, that was the whole purpose of that exercise, of that test race, and that's people should get familiar with how the cars handle now. They are a very, very, very realistic proposition now. I mean, maybe not for everybody's taste, because if you are just in a position that you want to have casual fun here, well, then maybe this is not the league for you, because we're using ultra-realistic physics. And what pays off here is to dedicate some time to training and to race skillfully, but also sensibly. You don't want to risk your car stupidly, and we will see that many people who are very, very regular on their driving, like for example Bruno Chacon, people who are maybe not the quickest but are fantastically regular, will be scoring points here and will be doing very well in this season.
Yeah, I think that probably also bodes well for USAC 74. I think people who are smooth and consistent and aren't obsessed with being the quickest all the time will probably end up doing pretty good over the course of the series.
Yeah, they will. USAC is also a completely different thing. Those are very powerful cars, and now here in Automobilista with the turbo effects, they are really, really violent as they were back in the days.
Oh, yes.
The air effects have been fine-tuned, and while you can run behind another car, overtaking is not that easy, but with the yellows, that will be a continuous gamble and strategy, and, well, I mean, it's going to be really fun to drive and fun to see.
All right, so just briefly, I'm going to talk about the grid as it shook out right at the end of qualifying. Pascal Mikola is going to be on pole in his Tyrrell Honda. David Jakes will be alongside Brabham Yamaha. So that's going to be a very interesting start between those two drivers who are very, very let's just say they're alpha drivers. They're very they know where they want to be on the track, and they're both very aggressive, and it'll be interesting to see who gets to the first corner first. Then your son, Little Al, is starting third. He's on camera right now. He's driving Berger's McLaren Honda. He's got himself into a bit of a jam here, but he
was a bit surprised, I think, by the braking point of the car in front.
Mm-hmm. So he's going to be starting third, and then Dave Miller is starting fourth, and I know that's going to be a big thrill for somebody in our YouTube channel, Mrs. Dave, who is watching. Your man is starting fourth, which is fantastic. He has a good steed underneath him in the Williams Renault. David Saber is going to start fifth in the Ferrari 642. Richard Wilkes, the guy who designed the physics for this version of the F1 SR mod, is in the Leighton House Ilmore. Grant Riddall will be starting in seventh in the other Brabham Yamaha. Eighth is Brian Janek in a Minardi, and his teammate in the Minardi, David Yunt, is starting ninth, and 10th is the other McLaren Honda driven by Juha Boss. So that's the top 10 as they qualified for this race. And everybody in that group, with the exception of Janek and, Grant Riddall, basically used all 12 of their laps. So people were being very careful to make sure that they didn't go over the amount that they were allotted. Because I think if you go over that amount, you get DQ'd. So it's a good thing that nobody did that. So here's Little Al following, I believe it's Gianluca Desposito. And of course, he's got the power of that McLaren Honda V12 right behind him. Oh, and Gianluca lets him by. This was a brand new chassis from McLaren, and this was the first time they used the Honda V12 engine. The previous season, actually the previous 2 seasons, I believe they were using a Honda V10, and that's the one that's in the Tyrrell now. And Senna and Berger, I believe, were on record saying that they preferred the V10 over the V12. So we'll see how that plays out in this race as compared to other vehicles with the power being transmitted to the road. So about 4.5 minutes to go in the warm-up before we grid up the cars and start this series. First race of the year is always a fun thing because everybody's full of optimism. Everyone's like, "Oh goodness, nothing's been written yet. Anything is possible." But that first corner, I think, is going to be a sobering reminder for everybody of what happens when everybody wants to go for the same corner at the same time. But we'll see. I'm hoping that Alberto's prediction of everyone being patient is true.
Well, it's more a hope than a prediction, but if they don't, people will learn very quickly. I can tell you that.
All right. I said the trivia question earlier, but I'll say it one more time just so you know what it is and you can think about it. The trivia question involves the Jordan F1 team. The Jordan 191 was originally designed with which engine manufacturer in mind? A. Lamborghini, B. Yamaha, or C. Judd? We know that it ended up with the Ford HB, but that's not the engine that Gary Anderson designed it in mind for. So, something to think about. We'll reveal the answer later on in the race.
And so far, it seems to be Gabriele Del Piccolo who has the pace.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I've never put a lot of faith in, and here's Dave Miller for Mrs. Dave to have a look at. He's driving Nigel Mansell's Red 5 Williams Renault, the Lion. Right behind Jason Whitehead now. Looks like Dave is just trying to get warmed up and loose, not pushing it too hard. You can see how, I got to give credit to the F1SR group who did this mod originally. They did an excellent job of keeping the livery accurate. This is the way that the Williams appeared in Phoenix. It did not have a yellow airbox at this point. It had a white one. So I love the accuracy of this mod as far as the graphics go.
Yeah, it's absolutely fanatic. I mean, it's a mod created by real enthusiasts. And well, I mean, the cars are obviously no longer the most actual models. That's obvious. Time goes by for everything in these mods, but the level of accuracy of everything is absolutely amazing. I mean, they put a lot of effort and it shows.
Miller into the pits now. Well, he's going back to the garage now.
Yes, I think that they are for the briefing, as Juha Boss has
I see.
called for that.
So just to refresh everyone's memory, this race will be 82 laps or 2 hours, whichever comes first. I watched the actual Iceberg United States Grand Prix last night, as it was broadcast on ESPN at the time, and very exciting race. So hopefully we'll see excitement of that caliber for our first International Sim Racing Organization race of 2020. I think we're in store for a good one. So we'll see. So waiting for the final seconds to tick down. Any predictions you'd like to offer apart from what you've said so far, Alberto?
Sorry, repeat?
Any predictions you would like to offer apart from what you've said so far?
Well, I mean, it's hard to predict anything because
I know.
Everything is really open, and the times that you are all seeing on screen that people have scored, for example, with Gabriele Piccolo being so far high, it's not just a matter of the driver being good, it's of the different strategies that they are chosen. I mean, there will be people who will be stopping for tires, people who will be doing everything in a single leg, so it's hard to tell at this point. I mean, the only usual things that you can say is that quality drivers like David Jackson, Grant Ridal, or Brian Janek, they should be easily close to the top.
All right, so the clock has expired, so we're going to anticipate going to the race session next. So everyone stand by.
It's interesting that Pascal hasn't done a single lap in warm-up, at least not a complete lap, so he seems to be really confident on his practice on the race setup during the week.
Well, there's something to be said for that. Sometimes you don't want to burn energy that you need for the 82 laps. I mean, sometimes you just want to. Sometimes you just want to pretend you're Fittipaldi and just be calm in the car and take a nap. You know. All right, we are going to the grid now. So I'm going to advance to the first car. Let me get the proper view here. And I will take you through the grid one by one, as you're all used to seeing. First race of the year. Really, really exciting. All right. Proceeding to the grid. You can see the other cars being populated to the grid, and as soon as we're off onto the formation lap, I will go through the grid. I have a lot of affection for this particular Tyrrell, the 020, and a lot of people will remember that this was the car that Jean Alesi gave a fantastic drive at this same race in 1990, where he absolutely just had a straight-up fight with Ayrton Senna. It's one of the best in F1 history. I think you'd agree, Alberto.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Jean Alesi was really a hot driver, a hot talent, and a hot property back then. And it's no wonder that he ended up landing a ride at Ferrari.
Okay, off we go on the parade lap. On the pole, Pascal Mikola in the number 3 Tyrrell Honda, originally driven by Satoru Nakajima. Starting second, David Jakes in the Mark Blundell Brabham Yamaha. Third is Little Al in a McLaren Honda. Fourth, Dave Miller, Williams Renault. Fifth, David Saber, Ferrari 642. Sixth is Richard Wilkes in a Leighton House. Seventh is Grant Radal in the other Brabham Yamaha. Eighth is Brian Janek, the Detroit Demon, driving a Minardi. And his teammate, David Yunt, is starting ninth in the other Minardi. 10th, Juha Boss in the second McLaren, the Ayrton Senna McLaren, denoted by the yellow helmet. 11th is Gabriel Del Piccolo for Jordan Ford. 12th is Richard Coxon in a Dallara Judd. 13th, in another Dallara Judd, Ray Radal. 14th is Riley Blythe in a Ligier Lamborghini. 15th, Jason Whitehead, Benetton Ford. 16th, Victor Alsacar in the second Tyrrell Honda. Alcacer, apologies. Mick Chapman is 17th, Benetton Ford. 18th, Mike Olson in a Ferrari 642. 19th, Jan Kowalski, Jordan Ford. 20th, Anders Nilsson in an AGS Ford. 21st, Bruno Chacon in the other Williams Renault. 22nd, Adam Hackman in a LaRousse Ford. 23rd is Tim Hill in a Modena Lamborghini 291. 24th, Gianluca Desposito driving a Leighton House Ilmor. And rounding out the field is Timo Vermeersch in a Lotus Judd 102B. So that's your grid. Cars coming around now to take the grid. We timed that pretty well. We got the long shot here. I'd like to give a special shout out to Brian Janek for creating these beautiful cameras, which are very, very close to the actual cameras that were used by ESPN in 1991. You can see the cars getting set up for the start here. This is going to be a really mad dash down to the first corner. I can only imagine the pulses pounding in those cars right now. 24 cars taking the start here, 82 laps. And if you look at the top left, when you see the numbers blink up there for a second, you'll know we're under starters' orders. Okay, there we are. Stand by. And the race is underway. Look at one of the Brabhams popping out there, but Pascal Mikola gets an excellent start. It looks like he's smoking already. Goodness. But coming down into the first turn, and look, here comes Little Al up alongside David Jakes. Oh my goodness, there's an accident! No! Little Al has run into Pascal Mikola. Oh my goodness, what a disastrous start for these two. Pascal has been forced off into the... Oh my goodness, off into the runoff area, and he's now basically limping along. Let's take a look at a replay of this. Unbelievable. So it appears that just little Al he was going for the inside, and Pascal just turned in and said, that's my corner. And to be fair, it was Pascal's corner. What's your take on this, Alberto?
It's hard to tell, but I think he missed the braking point. He was maybe too focused on the car in front. That's really hard to tell at this point.
Well, the positive thing is it appeared that everybody else got through okay, without much trouble. But my goodness, what a disastrous start! And Pascal is now running dead last, 24th, and it's gonna. Oh my goodness, we have another car against the wall. There's several. Oh my goodness, it looks like that's Mike Olson back there. So lots and lots of mayhem on the first lap of this race. No, it's actually David Saber. David Saber's had an issue.
Yeah, Mike Olson is still racing.
Okay.
No issues there.
Victor is also out of the race, so this is not a good race for the Tyrrell team.
Going into the pits, yeah, he's going into the pits. He was just overtaken by Juha Boss, who is fighting with Jason White, and this is all a bit weird because Pascal Mikula's car was clearly smoking at the exit. I don't know what was going on there.
He may have overrevved the engine as he was getting ready for this, but getting back to the front here, Dave Miller is leading the race. It is Williams-Renault. He basically is the benefactor.
Grant is in the pits. Okay, Grant didn't have any front wings, so maybe he clipped it somewhere. And David Saber is also into the pits for repairs, front wing.
Well, Dave Miller must be hardly believing his luck right now, but if he thinks he's going to be on easy street, that would be a false assumption because he's got David Jakes right behind him. So it's Dave Miller leading. David Jakes is in second. And then we have Richard Wilkes in third. Brian Janek is in fourth. And Jan Kowalski fifth with Richard Coxon closing up behind him. This looks like it could be a really hot battle. Coxon, quite a good driver in this mod. So, goodness, I mean, that really changes what we thought was going to happen at the start. I'm still trying to process what happened. So, lap 3 is now underway, and there's a 0.834 second gap between Dave Miller and David Jakes. So, David Jakes obviously does not have the superior car in this scenario. So if you're David Jakes, what do you do? What's your strategy right now? Do you just want to hold station behind Dave and see what develops? We'll get back to Alberto in just a moment. But here you see Dave Miller leading David Jakes. Williams-Renault, obviously one of the classes of the field. So the question is going to be, can David Jakes make up for the deficiencies inherent in the year-old Brabham Yamaha? He's definitely staying with Dave now. Oh, Dave has a bit of a loose moment there. Oh, and they're coming up to David Saber now, who I assume is exited the pits. This is kind of awkward. They got to find a way by David, but David does the best he can to let them by. It's really hard on a street circuit like this to make room for somebody because you can't just vaporize. you have to find a way to let them by, and sometimes it's just not. It's awkward at best, especially on street circuits. So I was asking.
Small update for you. I just talked with Lal and asked him what happened in the start, and he says that he was completely surprised by the fact that his brakes did not work.
My goodness!
Maybe he did not warm them up enough in the warm-up lap, or whatever the case. But he said he used his reference point as usual. But when he went on the brakes, there was nothing, and then all of a sudden they locked, and then he was completely going into Pascal's rear, and he says he's very, very sorry. He will be apologizing to Pascal for that, but it was unexpected for him.
Well, I can only imagine how bad he feels.
You bet. He was really, really sad, feeling sad.
Yeah. Well, in any case...
I'm really sorry also for Pascal, because he had done a great qualifying time, and well...
Well, it's cold comfort right now, but this is a long season. It's just one race out of 16, so anything can happen. But getting back to what's going on here, we got a great race on our hands now at the front here. Not only is David Jakes closing on Dave Miller, we also have Richard Wilkes closing.
Mike Wilson is in the wall and with the car on fire.
Oh my goodness. Oh, yes he is, and there's wheels flying. That is a barbecue. Let's have a look at a replay here. It looks like he had lost his front wing already, and he was trying to get the car back to the pits. I think I can guess what's going to happen next. The car's going to probably...
retirement so far, besides him.
Oh, yeah, he just...
Mikula and Victor Alcocer also retired.
That's too bad.
Grant Ridal? What's his Grant Ridal? Because he's... I'm seeing his car in the garage, but he's scored in the track. Well, that's a bit weird.
It's going to take a bit for us to understand where everybody's at, because there was so much nuttiness going on. I mean, we obviously stuck with the leaders because it was the main story, but we're just going to have to get familiar with where everybody is as we go. But in the meantime, as I was saying, Dave Miller in the lead, but he's not opening up any daylight between himself and David Jakes. In fact, David Jakes, well, he got a little bit of room there because he was negotiating traffic and got to it in a fortuitous point. But David Jakes is now coming under attack from Richard Wilkes, and not too far behind this group is Brian Janek. So this could be a 4-car battle for the lead before long. So really exciting stuff. Yes,
though I believe they will be grouping and not trying to attack each other because they have to preserve the tires.
Yes.
Like I said, the tires are very delicate here. They get hot very quickly, and what will normally happen is that the drivers, unless there is a very clear chance of overtaking, they will be just happy to be together there at the top and keep their chances towards the end of the race. And once the fuel load is lighter and there is not so much stress put on the tires, they will really go racing there. So that's a nice part of these Formula One races of the early 90s, that you have two races in one, so to speak. You have first a strategy race where the being constant and keeping the position is the most important thing until half the race, and then you will see a sprint race where everybody will start dicing.
All right, so Jakes has given a bit of space here to Dave Miller. So we'll see how quickly he comes under
attack.
And
Richard Coxon had got the 5th position from David Junt. He must have overtaken him some laps ago.
Yep, Coxon is up to 5th. Yeah, he's one definitely to watch in this race because he's run the. I know that he's run the Dallara before. Other times that we've run this mod, the regulars, I mean, that we're all used to running with. So he's familiar with the car. And in the ISO series, I expect him to do quite well. Same holds true for David Yunt, who's right behind him. I expect him to do really well in this series. I think it's quite telling that they're both just slowly creeping up from middle of the pack. All right, so now it looks like David Jakes is starting to reel Dave Miller back in a little bit. The gap is now 0.7 of a second. As we ride on the T-Cam with David Jakes. That Brabham sounding very raspy like it has bronchitis. And you can bet in the stands there's one particular person who's going berserk every time Dave Miller goes around. It is Angel May, also known as Mrs. Dave.
It's only a pity that in this championship there are no points for more laps left.
It's true. We did talk about that really the only points that you have are the points for 1st through 6th, and that's it for the drivers and constructors. Oh, there's an excellent little scrap happening. Well, no, actually, that's I believe that's a lapped car. Yes, Tim Hill giving way to Ray Riddall. Newcomer Riley Blythe is running in 10th place in a Ligier Lamborghini, a much maligned car. This is a car that Thierry Boutsen just absolutely hated to drive. But he's doing okay so far, and he's actually getting closer to Ray Riddall. So I don't know much about this Riley Blythe, but this is his first ISO start. First time I've seen him on the track. What do you know about this young man?
No, I think so. He's also new here, but he's doing fantastically with that dog of a car. A car where the only good thing of it was the sound of the Lamborghini engine, but other than that, it was clearly doomed.
Yeah, the Lambo was, as we're listening to it now, it has a lovely sound, but apart from that, is it another case of just weight distribution being a problem?
I think it was general overall lack of downforce. By this time, by the 90s, downforce was already the most important thing, and even if you were good at doing suspensions, or even if you had a decent engine, if your aerodynamics weren't good enough, then you were absolutely toast. This is the time when John Engineer was starting to rise, who later was the one who masterminded Williams Grand Prix cars and also became recently the most dominant engineer in the Formula One history with the Red Bull team, and you know who
Yes.
I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
So, well, I mean, obviously aerodynamics had been already important with the ground effect cars and all that, but the ground effect cars, everybody was able to do brutal downforce with those cars, so it wasn't just the only thing. But here in the early 90s, with the diffusers and no longer with a flat bottom and no longer having the expeditive way of getting downforce that you have with the tunnels that you have in the ground effect cars, it was already a matter of having real talent in engineering and access to a wind tunnel and all of that. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, when you think about, we talked about Gary Anderson earlier, the guy who designed the Jordan 191. I think that it speaks volumes about his abilities that they were able to produce a car out of the box that was reasonably competitive. I mean, at first it was kind of a midfielder, but as the season got to Canada, it was suddenly a very, very competitive car. I think during one of the races, I think it was Hungary, Gachot set the fastest, or it wasn't Gachot, it was somebody, I forget who it was, but whoever was driving one of the Jordans set the fastest lap of the race. So I mean, that's pretty impressive to design a brand new car from the ground up and have it be competitive in his first season. We haven't seen that happen very often. As Jakes is now just back to a point where he's basically holding station behind Miller. I doubt David sees much value in racing him right now. I think he's doing exactly what you're suggesting, preserving the tires, not doing anything stupid, saving the racing for later, although he is very close to him now. Goodness, yeah, really closing in. I don't know if he's taking a look now on the inside, but Dave has the line going into the corner. Oh, more parts lying by the side of the road.
Oh my God!
What happened now? You have the inside line on this one? Well, David is definitely got, and now if you have a look, there's lap cars right ahead. Timo Vermeersch, but he's making room in the Lotus, so there's not going to be a problem there. Yeah, he's already gotten out of the way, but Jakes is definitely right with Dave Miller right now, and my goodness, he's going to have to be really careful and watch David's braking points very closely. It's a David and David show up front in the first ISO race of the year, the Iceberg United States Grand Prix. Everyone who's watching on YouTube, we're very glad to have you with us. I hope you're enjoying the race. For those of you who tuned in late, there was an accident on the start between pole sitter Pascal Mikola and the third place starter Alberto Aquino, and definitely not the start we would have hoped to have seen, but I'm sure there's going to be some discussions about that later on. But as ever, David Jakes showing us why he is one of the best sim racers in our friendly community that we have here. Staying right with Dave Miller.
What's going on is that David Jakes, who is a driver with the ability to keep his attention focused on the driving and also on the strategy and his hood at the same time, he was realizing that from behind it was getting uncomfortably close between the pack that is following him. You see, there's Richard Wilkes.
Oh.
Yeah, he was showing his car there to Dave Miller. And there was Richard Wilkes coming, and then there's Brian Janek also getting too close. And behind him is also Richard Coxon. And David Jakes knows that he is in an inferior car to many of the drivers behind him. And whatever his strategy...
Oh, goodness! We just had a car go off. It's Richard Wilkes. He's gone into the runoff area.
Oh, no.
Looks like he just missed his braking zone. He hasn't damaged the car. So he's going to be able to rejoin, but he's got to be careful doing it. Here's a replay. Let's look at a replay of this on board with Richard Wilkes, and we'll see what happened. I think he just flat missed his braking zone and just decided, okay, in this case, I've got to just go straight into the runoff area. Yeah, he did. He just missed it entirely. Locks up the tires. Didn't hit anything. He was very fortunate. But that puts him all the way down to 6th place. So that's a costly mistake for Richard Wilkes.
Yeah, well, costly, but not as much as it would have been some laps ago when the difference between cars
Oh, goodness.
was...
And apparently David Jakes has had an incident of some kind. Yeah, he... I don't know what happened, but he apparently had an incident that set him back to
Riley
3rd
Blythe
place.
Did not finish. What happened there?
What?
Was going Riley Blythe. It seems he just abandoned. I'm looking at the reply now. I can see his car there.
All right, here's the
he lost the rear. He lost the rear and he spun and hit the barrier with the rear and broke the suspension. That's really unfortunate.
Okay, so I've got the replay now. What happened? It looks like David Jakes clipped one of the barriers, and then, oh my goodness! Well, there's a bit of a ping issue there, but clearly he got all crossed up, and he may have some damage on that car. So very unfortunate for David Jakes, but he is down to 4th place now. But he's closing in on Brian Janek, who's now in 3rd. And Coxon is 3rd, and Brian Janek wait a minute, hang on a second. Coxon 3rd, Janek is 2nd, and David Jakes is 4th. That's strange because on track, Coxon is actually behind David Jakes, but he's being shown in 4th place. So there's a bit of a scoring oddity going on here. What do you make of that, Alberto? Well, now it doesn't matter because David just let Richard by. So now what you see on the screen is accurate to what's actually happening. It appears that David's fighting that car now. I would wager that he's got some damage. There you see in the background the remnants of Riley Blythe's car. That's really too bad, but he looked really good. He was running in 10th.
I can see that David Jakes has to have the steering wheel slightly turned to the right to go straight, which, well, he's clipping the corners because it's hard for him to. It's very hard for him to point the car in the right direction, and the braking zones. I'm thinking they will be absolute hell for him because if you can't brake in a straight line, well, then
man, he's really struggling with that car.
If his strategy involved the pit stop, well, he could somehow make a change of it. Well, no, maybe not. He can't change the strategy right now because at this point what happens is that he can't, those were the rules at the time, he can't add fuel to his tank. So if he had, for example, in mind stopping in the middle of the race for tires, then he will have to do the repairs then, or enter the pits now, lose time with the repairs, and then try to fight on. But it's not easy to tell how long it will be until the repairs are completed.
Well, he's losing places. He just gave up 4th place to David Yunt. So if I were him, I would just come into the pits and fix the car, because if the attrition rate is what we're expecting, he could find himself back in the points if he can get the car fixed and go. So it might be the smartest thing to do right now.
It's hard to tell. He's the only one who really knows how bad his car is right now and how much of an effort
we're just speculating. Right? We have no idea.
And knowing his quality as a driver and as a strategist, I think that he will probably take the best course of action. But seen from outside, I also would speed to fix that car.
Meanwhile, Brian Janek has inherited 2nd place with all of this craziness that's gone on, and he has now assumed the role that David Jakes was assuming before, chasing Dave Miller.
Yeah, that's what David Jakes was seeing coming. I was talking about that before when we were interrupted by that incident. And what David Jakes certainly didn't want is to have Brian Janek breathing on his neck from behind. And we'll see what happens now when he gets close enough to Dave Miller.
Yes, the driver who I've christened the Detroit Demon, Brian Janek. He's closing ever so slightly on Dave Miller, and he's got Richard Coxon, who very quietly has snuck up to 3rd place in his Dallara. So this is a very interesting mix of drivers up front. Dave Miller, a driver that I think is fair to say is really flowered into a consistent performer lately. Did really well in the kart series in another league last year, in a car that quite frankly was not the best in the mod, and in other different series he's shown that he's very versatile and can be very, very consistent. I drove with Dave Miller in a sports car race last year, 6-hour variety, and we finished in 6th place as a team. I found him to be very consistent to drive with, a great teammate, and when Bathurst comes along later on this year, I might be knocking on his door again for a bit of a shared drive. In any case, he's got a formidable opponent here in Brian Janek, and I don't think Brian's going to be content to stay back there for very long. He's too competitive to do that.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. First, he has to get close enough to be in striking distance. And then, I think Dave there lost a bit the rear of the car. And this is also, it's one of those things that as a mere spectator, you tend to easily miss. But for example, the fact that Brian Janek is getting closer to Dave Miller, that puts pressure on the driver in front, okay? So many times the mind games between the drivers, they are going like undercover, because you don't realize how much of a pressure Dave Miller is feeling and how much of a pressure Brian Janek is placing on him just by being there behind him. And Brian Janek, once he is in striking distance, he can see where Dave Miller is failing, is doing something wrong, one lap or the other, because he's watching him closely. And this is one of those situations where you can see if you're making the other guy nervous, because you can see his errors and his mistakes, even if they are tiny and small, and on TV you would not realize that they are there.
Well, now Richard Coxon has closed up to Janek, and this is very quickly going to become a 3-car battle. Janek now, he's got to think about Coxon immediately behind him. He can't really be focusing on Miller. This is the worst nightmare of a driver in a lot of ways, because you have to subdivide your... I think I remember James Hunt saying that you have to have 360-degree vision in a situation like this. And that really can be taxing for a driver.
That's exactly what David Jakes wanted to avoid when he started getting antsy and trying to overtake Dave Miller. He knew this was going to happen.
Well, they're getting really close now, and I would like to remind everybody, we're not even to lap 20 yet out of 82. So, it was still very early days. I wouldn't be surprised if we hit the 2-hour limit and not actually go 82 laps. In reality, the actual race went 81 laps, they hit the time limit. So, and it was a crystal clear day. Well, it was cloudy, but there's no rain, so weather was not a factor.
Yeah, and David Jacks I can see him dropping like a stone, and his car is, oh, whoa, now he spun and lost the front wing there.
Oh,
His
goodness.
Tires were leaving marks in the asphalt, which means that they were scrubbing because of the bent suspension, and I'm not really sure what he's going
He's
to
against
do.
the wall now. He's out of
retiring.
the race. He just retired. That's too bad.
He's retiring, yeah.
Well, he's going to be up.
That was one of the points that we made before the start of the race. Careful with the walls, because notching them can break your race immediately.
Richard Wilkes is now up to 5th place. So after that incident that he had,
Hackman just went straight on. He missed his braking point, and he's about to turn around.
Oh yes, Hackman from Indiana, I believe, driver that we know from USAC and kart racing. He's waiting for the
Look
appropriate.
also at what we were talking about at the beginning of the race. Bruno Chacon, one of our most constant drivers, he started in 21st position and he's now 11th.
That's 10 places picked up simply through attrition and driving cleanly. Actually, this is interesting. His teammate is coming up behind him now. So
he isn't worried about the pace. He's worried about really doing well, keeping his car in one piece, and he always does a great job at that.
Yeah, he's definitely consistent. Not the quickest, but he does get cars to the finish. He can baby a car for sure. And you can see the leaders now coming up. Oh, goodness! I just noticed that a car is missing from that train, and it is Janek.
Brian Janek. I can see him still in my lap times.
Well, he's there, but he dropped down to 4th, so he must have made an error somewhere. So, the interesting thing about this is every time it appears that Dave Miller is going to come under attack, some calamity befalls the people following him. So we'll see if the same thing happens to Richard Coxon now. Yes, he's approaching. Not that I'm wishing ill will on him, but that seems to be the pattern. As they both it looks like they're both going to overtake Bruno here. Well, maybe not. Bruno's going to make room. Yes, Coxon gets by now. So now it's Coxon's turn to chase Red 5 in the guise of Dave Miller. But I would imagine that David Jakes is really smarting after what happened, because it clearly was a mistake that he made just on his own, and I think it's fair to say that he could have stayed right with Dave Miller most of the race and then maybe have made a charge at some point. So, but this is one of those tracks in the schedule which is really an equalizer. So we'll see what happens. We'll probably get a clearer picture of who the real strong ones in this series will be when we go to round 2 and 3, I would think. This one's kind
of... just to put things in perspective, when we ran with this mod in our factory in 2017 in the other league, back then only 8 cars finished the race. And the race was won by David Jacks, who was driving for McLaren back then. So it's certainly a big attrition race. 15 cars right now on track, which
15.
means, well...
So we've lost 9 at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that was the unfortunate incident on the first lap, because otherwise there would be 2 more there, but...
So Richard Coxon tooling along the Delar, and you can see how violent the bumps are, in particular with... I mean, it doesn't appear to be as violent in Dave Miller's car. Apparently, Coxon's got his car very stiffly sprung for this race.
Yeah, they have to be, because otherwise they don't. They start doing all kind of
downforce doesn't work
to the aerodynamics. So.
Yeah.
But in any case, I mean the problem. You must understand that when a designer makes a Formula One car, he does it for the average track, or for those tracks where he knows that his car will excel for whatever reason. So they have very stiff suspensions because they will normally be racing in 90% of the season in tracks that are smooth as the proverbial baby boom. But in this case, they have to cope as well as they can with the asphalt here and at Monaco. And bear in mind that when you are driving with your normal street car in one of the city streets, you even feel bumps when you go, for example, over one of those manholes or any of those bumps that you regularly feel. And you have a softly sprung car on street tires and with a high ride height. But just imagine these Formula Ones that have a suspension travel that is about 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters or something like that, and they are very stiffly sprung. It's absolute hell to be in the cockpit of one of these things, because also the seat where you are sitting is extremely stiff. It's made up of carbon fiber or in the best case aluminum, and it's purposely done so that the driver feels in his back what's going on with the car. They need that feel, so you can equate one of these races to being beaten with a baseball club or something like that for a while, because the drivers are absolutely shaken and full of bruises when they finish a race. Like
Well,
this.
I hope that Dave Miller doesn't have too many bruises right now, because he's going to have to be 10/10ths, because Coxon is closing rapidly in his Dallara. So engine matchup here: a Williams with a Renault V10 engine and a Judd, I believe, in the Dallara. That's a V8 engine, correct?
I think so. The Dallara was having the Ferrari engine, if I remember correctly. It should be a V12.
I think you're thinking of the Minardi.
Minardi. Sorry.
Yeah, this is using a Judd V10.
Yeah.
The Dallara. The Dallara used a Ferrari engine the following year, I believe. All right, so he's staying right with Miller now, and if you look back on the straightaway, you see that you now have the Minardi team running third and fourth. David Yunt in third, and Brian Janek in fourth, and Richard Wilkes, after his off-course excursion, is running in fifth. Sixth place, a little further back, is Juha Boss in the McLaren. So it's not a complete washout for the McLaren team. And then Ray Rudall running in seventh place. So a lot of familiar faces, drivers that we know can drive consistently, are coming to the front. So I don't suppose that's too big of a surprise. Meanwhile, we can report from the paddock. We've got reaction from David Jakes. He says it was completely his fault. Lost focus and slid wide. He's, on the other hand, though, rooting for Dave Miller to do well. So, ever the sportsman, David Jakes. Coxon staying right with Dave Miller. So the other question on my mind here is, will there be any tire stops for these two?
Yeah, that's the question. What strategy both of them have?
Yeah.
And if you're in one of the slower cars where you have put softer tires to compensate and have more grip, then you are, of course, if that's the case for Richard Carlson, you are, of course, very interested in getting the best of your car. And if there is a slower car in front, then he's destroying your strategy. So we'll see what happens later. But I see Dave Miller driving very steadily and very confidently, ready to make another scratch on his revolver, because he has already dispensed with two very good drivers that were putting pressure on him. So I don't think that he's much scared about having Richard Carlson behind.
No, he's shown incredible poise, which is really cool to see, and I've seen him exhibit that poise in other series too. He's not a guy who gets shaken very easily, but now he's got Coxon right behind him. So he's going to have to really keep... Oh my goodness, this may be it. Yeah, he has a loose moment coming out of the corner. Coxon has an opportunity here, but I think there you're seeing the superiority of the Renault engine as... Oh, goodness, guys.
Good
Careful,
defense there.
Careful.
Corner.
Dave Miller, very good defensive driving, you're right. Coxon looking up the inside again. Miller slams the door. No, that's my line. a good battle here, but definitely they are they're playing with kid gloves a little bit. They don't want to damage the cars, and who can blame them? Looks like this could be another opportunity for Coxon down here, or maybe he's going to take a break here and let the car cool down.
Yeah, probably that has hit up his tires a lot. We're about 1/4 into the race now, so that means that the cars are not yet really ready to do close battle fighting.
And by close battle fighting, you would mean getting the fuel down to... Oh, there he goes! He's looking up the inside! This may be it. Miller's got the inside line in the next corner, though, and retains the lead. I believe Coxon backed off, realizing that it was not a smart idea to be on the outside there.
Well, Miller's cars is very superior, especially engine-wise, and
Yeah.
he knows that. So if you look at what he's doing, he's basically just driving his own race. He's doing his own lines, his braking points, and all that, because that suffices to make Richard Coxon's life very complicated if he's trying to overtake. It's not an easy exercise for him. So Dave Miller knows that, and he's basically just
Yeah, Bruno, the awkward position. Oh, goodness. Yeah, well, that could have gone weird there, but didn't. Now here's, well, that must have been really tempting for Coxon looking up the inside there, but it was such a short run. They've got Mick Chapman ahead of them now. So, I mean, it's very conceivable. Oh, Richard brushes the wall there. Nothing too serious, but you don't want to brush the wall too many times. It's going to accumulate. And he lost a bit of time there to Dave, so we'll see what happens now. They're coming into... They're starting lap number 25.
Yeah, and here's what happens. I mean, Richard has to push the car to get that distance back. And he arrives with cooked tires to Dave Miller. And then he starts trying to overtake, and the tires don't exactly respond well. They get even hotter. And Richard knows that there is a very small window of opportunity that you have there before you have to back up and let the tires cool down. Dave Miller obviously also knows it, so he's just doing a steady drive there.
Timo Vermeersch ahead of these two.
He knows what Richard's difficulties are.
He's running in 12th place, matching the number on his car. They're both going to pop out here, and Timo's on the inside there, deliberately giving them room. There they go into the corner.
If there's a place where you want to find a lap car, it's exactly this one on the broad 3-4 lane avenues.
I would point out also, people are maybe wondering, are you missing any other action because you're covering the leader so much? I can confirm, having scrolled through, this is the best battle on the circuit right now. Everybody else is pretty much spread out, so we're not missing much of anything. But I'll scroll through periodically to make sure we're not missing much of anything. But here comes Dave Miller down the back straightaway. Lap number 26. He leads by just a little under 0.6 of a second right now.
Yeah, in 14 laps we will arrive to the half point of the race, and I believe that's when we will see some cars doing a pit stop, and then many things will change immediately, because there will be people on fresh tires who start the real race at that moment, and they have ground to cover against those who did not stop. And, well, everything will be like suddenly completely turned around.
We have 16 viewers on YouTube right now, so that's fantastic for a first broadcast for this series. We really appreciate everyone tuning in, and we hope you're enjoying this Titanic scrap. that Ligier piece still sitting back there. Unfortunate for Riley.
Janek was getting closer to David Jant at some point, but now he's again a bit far behind. Maybe there was some driving error, and it's Richard Wilkes now who is getting closer to him.
That could be an interesting battle later on. Yeah, he is definitely
Wilkes
closing.
obviously developed the physics for these cars, and he knows perfectly well what it is to
Dave
drive
Miller
them.
has dropped to second place. Oh, we look back just that 1 minute, and we missed it. So here's the replay of what happened. Coming into the corner, looking for Coxon behind him. Let's see what happens here. Coxon must have taken advantage of a slight... Yes! Oh my goodness. Dave Miller had a loose moment, was lucky to catch the car. He didn't hit anything, but it gave a perfect opportunity for Richard Coxon to go through. So new leader, Sheffield, England's Richard Coxon in front for Delara Judd. And we saw we saw Dave Miller.
What happens, what his strategy is, and he better, if he is going to stop, he better start putting some distance between him and Miller, because otherwise, once he comes out of his pit stop, he could find himself easily again behind.
Well, Miller was having fishtailing moments like that earlier, so that was symptomatic of something he was dealing with, whether it was tire heat in the rear or something else.
Now
I'm
it's
not
Wills
sure.
getting closer to Brian Janek, and we'll see how this pans out.
Yes, Richard Wilkes closing in. This is the Leighton House, designed by Adrian Newey, I believe, with the Ilmore V10.
Yes, Newey is obviously the engineer we were talking about earlier. He was already poking his head in Formula One, and he quickly became a mythical figure there some years later.
Angel May is saying that this is just a slight setback and that Miller will be back in the lead later. So apparently she's privy to the plan.
Yeah, it's like I said, I'm really looking forward to see what the strategies here.
Oh, Miller has dropped to third now. So that looks like another miscue that might have occurred. Yeah, it happened a bit too far back to know, but he's given up second place to David Yunt now. So now it's a question of, can David Yunt reel in Richard Coxon? David Miller is in third. Janek is in fourth. And yes, Richard Wilkes is most definitely closing in, and they've got traffic ahead, which will likely play a role. Chapman gets out of the way. It's always so scary coming out of those corners with those tires there. It visually just looks like you have no room.
Yeah, that's probably what differentiates the really great drivers from the simply very good ones. I mean, that they can lap after lap get close to the barriers and never hit them.
Okay, Timo has just let Brian by. We'll see if Wilkes is able to get by at a fortuitous point. Looks like he's going to have a good opportunity here coming down the straight.
And Timo is also one of those drivers who is constant and can make something at the end of the race thanks to his constancy there with the driving. He's not really bothered with banging wheels all the time and trying to make the hottest lap, but focused there on his race and minding his own business. And when there's a big amount of attrition, you can count with him being also there at the end.
So the gap between David Yunt and the leader, Richard Coxon, is 6 seconds, almost exactly. So we'll have to keep an eye on that.
That went down quite a bit, because last time I looked it was like nearly 9 seconds.
All right,
So
well, we'll keep an eye on that.
David Yunt is getting antsy now.
The gap between Richard Wilkes and Brian Janek is about 1.5 seconds right now. Ray Riddell soldiering on in 6th place. 7th is Del Piccolo. 8th, Juha Boss. 9th, Jan Kowalski in a Jordan. 10th, Anders Nilsson in the much maligned AGS Ford. not a car that everybody would probably go, oh, me, I want to drive this one. But Anders soldiering on. And I believe he's driving Stefan Johansson's car. And that would make sense because Anders is from Sweden.
Yeah, he likely has an affinity with this driver.
And Timo is in 11th place. 12th, Bruno Chacon. 13th is Adam Hackman. 14th, Mick Chapman. And those are the last cars running. Jason Whitehead is out of the race. He's the most recent retirement. Oh, goodness. Oh, Timo. Oh, no. Timo has had a serious accident, and people are, no. We have 2 retirements at least from this. Oh, my goodness. What a disaster. Poor Mick Chapman had nowhere to go there. Let's look at the replay. So Bruno is overtaking Timo here. Got a little close there, but I don't think that was the cause of the incident at all. Here's Timo. Oh, goodness, under acceleration, he just gets all crossed up. He comes off the corner, and it looks like one of the bumps might have caught him funny as he was accelerating, and he clocks the wall on the right-hand side, taking off the rear wing and the right rear wheel. And poor Mick, he was going for a gap between the wall and Timo, but Timo rolled right into his path, and boom. Oh, so 2 retirements right there. That's really unfortunate. Both Timo and Mick Chapman out of the race.
Which is also the second Benetton.
Yes, so Benetton now has fully retired from the race. There is Chapman pulling off the course. I'm not sure why he doesn't just quit, because he's lost wheels. I doubt you can repair that in the pits. But their loss is going to be the gain of a few people here. Del Piccolo up to 7th, and he was also very close to that incident. Heart was probably in his throat. Juha is now 8th. Well, he was 8th. Oh, no! We have another accident, I believe. Oh, my goodness. Yep. And Coxon just coming by and missing that. Let's see, who was it? No, it was another Jordan. But Del Piccolo's off the track now. I'm not sure what precipitated that, but his car is intact. Another Jordan. It was Jan Kowalski. That's who it was. Let's look at the replay. Yeah, here it is. Running backwards now. My goodness. So attrition starting to bite cars now. It seemed like we had. So here he is coming into a corner. Looks like he might have glanced a barrier. Yeah, he did. He glanced the tire barrier on the outside. Just reached out and grabbed the car. That's really unfortunate for Jan. And you see our leader coming through there, so just managing to avoid that. So just that quickly, we have a bunch of cars out of the race. You blink and they're gone. Juha is in 8th. Jan Kowalski is still 9th, but he's going to be dropping down the order. 10th, Anders Nilsson still. If he keeps his nose clean, he might be looking at points before this race is over, in an AGS no less. 7th is Del Piccolo still. He recovered from that off-course excursion he had. He didn't damage the car, it didn't look like. Ray is 6th. Wilkes is still 5th, and Janek is still holding his own in 4th. Miller 3rd, Yunt 2nd, and Coxon is 1st. The gap between, let's have a look at the gap between Yunt and the leader, although it looks like Dave Miller might be closing on Yunt too, so that could provide an interesting battle. Waiting for a sector here to see. We got another yellow flag in this corner, not sure what that's about.
Yeah, I think it's Mick Chapman going slowly through the track. He's letting the cars pass.
Yeah, but
he can go around the corner, and he's making the long way to the pits, and well...
Is he thinking that he can get that thing fixed?
He's going to give it a try. I mean, given the attrition rate of the race.
Yeah, but does this mod allow you to...
Now he spun.
Okay, so the gap is 7 seconds now.
He's going reverse into the pits. Now that's funny. He probably didn't want to make a 180 degrees so as not to blow the tires.
Well, he's going to be making the blooper reel at the end of the year, that's for sure. Now we'll see if they'll put wheels back in the car as he pulls in. Maybe he knows something that we don't. You going to stop here? Nope. See, it puts the wing on, but not the wheel. So that effectively means that his race is over.
Yep. A long way to the pits in vain, because that car's not going to get fixed. Or No, probably not. I mean, he's getting repairs, but if the wheel
Oh,
isn't
goodness.
tested-
We're missing Dave Miller's out of the race. Oh, no. Not sure what happened here, but the guy who led a lot of the race, Dave Miller, is out, and that's going to be a very unpopular development for people in the YouTube gallery. And I'm not entirely... This must have happened a while back. It might have happened right at the same time we were having the other incidents, because I'm going back here in the replay, and he's still in the garage, so I have no clue. We'll have to talk to him after the race. That's really unfortunate. So that basically means that Del Piccolo is now elevated to 6th place and into the points. Juha is 7th. Dave Miller's 8th, but he's going to be dropping down the order. Nilsson 9th. Ray Riddall is in 5th. 4th is Richard Wilkes, who is still trying to catch up to Brian Janek. Doesn't seem to be making much headway there. Yunt is in 2nd, and 1st still is Coxon. Let's take a look at that gap between Yunt and Coxon.
Yeah, the gap has actually increased. It's now 7 seconds when it had been a peak low of 5 seconds or something like that. So that probably means that, well, David Jones was cooking his tires and decided to put it to a rest a bit.
Oh, we've got a hello message from Tiago Canola on the YouTube channel. It says, hello, ISO. This is Tiago. Awesome broadcast. Very good fights on track. I hope to see a Detroiter climbing up into the top 3 in this race. I can't imagine who he's talking about. Great to see my teammate Timo back as well. So, hello to Tiago. I suspect that he's messaging us from across the globe at this point.
He is where you was.
Yes, he is where I was. Well, we can talk about that later. But so David Yunt is continuing to soldier on. The gap is increasing now. 8 seconds.
The gap is, however, decreasing between Brian Janek and Richard Wilkes. It's only down to 1 point something seconds now. And these are keeping a fight with a bit of a distance, but they are certainly involved in a fight.
Looks like Wilkes might be fighting the rear grip in the tires. He's having a bit of wheel spin there as he accelerates. So he might be getting
he's probably getting quite excited to see that he's gaining some distance on Brian Janek and is optimistically accelerating there. But if he realizes that his tires are being cooked, then he will probably back up very soon. But he really is getting closer.
Everybody else is pretty much running alone. So basically now, there are only 9 cars in the race at this juncture.
Which is nearly half race.
Yeah. So we've gone from 24 cars down to 9 in the span of half the race. That's pretty telling about this track and the diabolical nature of the mod itself. How much of a challenge it is. So we have Chacon in 9th. 8th is Anders Nilsson in the AGS. 7th is Juha Boss. 6th, Gabriel Del Piccolo. 5th is Ray Riddall. 4th, Richard Wilkes, and he is definitely closing now on Brian Janek, who is 3rd. 2nd, David Yunt, and your leader is Richard Coxon by 8.163 seconds on lap 36.
And it would surprise me very much if Richard is able to finish the race without suffering attacks from David Yunt. I mean, David he's a very quick driver, but he's an absolute lover of endurance racing, and he's the guy who is the long-term thinking mind always there in the grid. So I'm sure that he has something in the pocket reserved to give Richard a nasty surprise towards the end of the race. He just is calculating like 20 laps ahead of everyone.
Yeah, and he's another one of these drivers who, at the end, seems to find another gear. When not physically, I just mean mentally and just in terms of his ability to carry on. Where other drivers are fighting to stay focused and not make mistakes, he just seems to find another gear and just like attack.
Yeah, for sure.
Now Richard is basically holding station behind Brian Janek, so we'll see what happens here.
Yeah, bear in mind that normally if he has made a bit of a sprint to get there, his tires will be a bit overstressed now. So what happens here is that the tactic here is, of course, to try to force an error in the car in front, but also to cool your tires down behind the other car while studying him and seeing where the best opportunity of passing comes. So we should see Richard Wilkes arriving and then staying there for some laps until deciding to try to go for the move.
Well, I think we've reached a point where it might be fun to do the trivia answer. So I'll remind everybody of the question. So the question was, the Jordan 191 was originally designed with which engine manufacturer in mind? Was it A, Lamborghini, B, Yamaha, or C, Judd? Would you like to hazard a guess, Alberto?
I'll do a complete blind guess, but knowing how unreliable they were in delivering, I would say Lamborghini just for the fact that they would never hold their word.
Okay. Waiting for other people to chime in on the... they're going to be delayed, actually, in their answer, so there's no point in me waiting. Well, unfortunately, you were wrong, Alberto. The answer is Judd.
Okay.
So, sorry about that. So, back to the action we go. And the gap seems to be about the same. I mean, these two look really evenly matched in these two cars. Oh, it looks like quite a bit of a gap open there just now. I don't know. I think you're right. It's a question of you work your way up to somebody, and then the flip side of that coin is you just heated up your tires to get there. So when you get there, you've now lost the ability to capitalize on it.
So I've seen the question asked in the chat about how many drivers actually finished the real race, okay? Not the one we did in 2017. And the answer is 9.
Well,
there were only 9 drivers at the
oh
end.
goodness! Anders Nielsen has had an off-course excursion, but it doesn't appear that he's damaged. Let's have a look at a replay of this. Driving the AGS Ford with the very unusual steering wheel. Maybe he just missed his braking point. Yes, he did. He exactly did that. Let's see. Did he hit? Oh, he did. He hit this. He hit the pickup truck or the flatbed on the left-hand side. Hopefully, it was just a glancing blow and it didn't damage the car. But he's back running again.
So just for the record, in the real race, just to give the complete results, it was Ayrton Senna who won the race, and the second was Alain Prost for Ferrari, third was Nelson Piquet for Benetton Ford, fourth Stefano Modena in the Tyrrell, fifth Satoru Nakajima in the second Tyrrell, sixth was Aguri Suzuki in the Lola Ford, seventh Nicola Larini in the Lamborghini, eighth Gabriel Tarquini in the AGS Ford, and ninth was Martin Brundle, 8 laps down with the Brabham Yamaha. All the rest were out of the race due to collision, engine, gearbox, fuel pump, or whatever problems.
So Ray Radal, it appears, had some kind of a issue, and he's dropped back behind Juha Boss, who is now 6th. But it looks like Ray is catching him back up again, and they are also getting closer to Gabriel Del Piccolo. So this could prove to be a good battle eventually. Ray would definitely like to get back into the points and help his team, Dallara. And by the same token, Juha's the only McLaren left, and he doesn't want to be a double DNF for Ron Dennis's team. So we haven't seen a lot of Juha in this race so far. He's been kind of lurking in the bottom half of the top 10. But it's a shame, actually, because I'm curious about what trim his car is in. It looks pretty smooth right now. You can see there Del Piccolo ahead of this group. So eventually they'll be catching him. That's Bruno Chacon in the middle, who is a lap behind this group. Barry Lynn says, thanks for the update, Alberto.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Del Piccolo in 5th. Richard Wilkes has dropped back a little bit now. He's still in 4th,
Yeah,
but he's...
something must have happened to him because he's now a good bunch of seconds behind Brian Janek.
Yeah, he's a good distance behind now, actually. So the best battle on the track right now is the one between Ray Radal and Juha Boss. So we'll see if Ray can reel him in a few laps here. Yeah, Juha seems to have that car in pretty good trim. It's not acting weird. It doesn't seem to react violently to the bumps.
He's not pushing it either. I mean,
yeah, I gather he's got something in hand.
This is an attrition race, and I think the most intelligent position in this race, unless you really are there at the top with the chance of having the win, but the most intelligent position here is to get along with the race, bag some points, and keep your car in one piece to the end of the race. I mean, this is a bit like soccer or baseball or all those other sports where they always say that. I mean, the leagues are won, the trophies are really won in the small fields. I mean, when you go and score there in the small teams field, instead of trying to just go for the flashy moment of scoring against the big team and all that, yeah, that's obviously what everybody remembers. That's a nice thing. But if you want to be there at the end, then the dirty work has to be done in tracks like this. I mean, this is obviously not the glamorous Monaco. This is not the lightning fast Spa with all the romanticism and all that. But the points that you score here are what can put you there at the end of the championship in a position for the fight.
Well, Juha is now... Oh, my goodness! He just had a very loose moment, but he's very close now to Del Piccolo. Apparently, Del Piccolo had an incident of some kind, or made a mistake, cost him some time, and now Juha's right with him. And clearly, if you're talking about engine performance and chassis, obviously Juha's got the advantage in this equation. But Ray Radal is right with them, so we got a good 3-car battle now suddenly.
And we are right now at half race. So if
goodness.
Someone's going to pit for tires, we should be close to that moment now.
You can see this long shot here. It's a telephoto shot, so it's a little bit deceptive about how close the cars are together. But if you're Juha now, this is an excellent opportunity to get into the top 5.
I think that in Juha's mind right now is not getting overtaken by Ray Radal, because he probably knows that if Ray goes by, it's not the easiest guy that you are going to find in front to overtake.
On the other hand, Ray is going to, if he gets by Juha, is just going to, all that's going to happen is he's going to be now sandwiched between those two cars, which is not an enviable position either. So maybe the technically superior thing to do is to just watch points right now.
What's up with Anders Nilsson now? He's in the box. Did he retire? his course is 38 laps, but he's in the garage.
Oh, he has retired. He's out of the
Okay.
race. Oh, man, that's too bad. So we're now at 8 cars running. Bruno is 8th. Ray 7th. Oh, Juha's definitely having a look at Del Piccolo. Del Piccolo taking a defensive line. Oh, this is going to get interesting really fast here. Hopefully not in the Carbon Fiber Festival type of interesting. But I don't know. Anything can happen. I believe that's... Yeah, he's going to the pits.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the tire stop.
Yep. But bear in mind, with the tires that he had, and he's likely going to repeat now the same tires, he had been able to be in front of these guys, and now he has half tank and again fresh tires. So
he's going to be a force as he gets back out there. So there goes Del Piccolo. Tire change completed. Exits the pits. He's in 7th place.
yeah, it's a short pit lane. It's a short tire change, and now he is. Well, let me check that because I don't get partial timing here. But he's not really that far away from the other guys, and like I said, on fresh tires and with only half the fuel load.
So now Ray is right with Juha. So take a quick look here through the rest. There's Janek. Wilkes is now in 3rd. So Janek must have made some kind of an error, or perhaps he pitted, and we didn't see it.
And like I said, I know from Little Al that the McLarens are really struggling with the fuel consumption here. So let's see what happens towards the end of the race in the case of Juha. I mean, it's a very quick car, but if you run out of fuel, then that's worth nothing.
Yeah, you've just wasted all the effort you put in. And like you said, you can't refuel the cars at this stage in Formula 1. 1991.
Yeah, I know for the McLarens it was full tank. Maybe for the less powerful cars they could get away with not filling it up completely, which of course helps a lot with the weight, but the McLarens, they really had to top it off.
God, you can really get an idea of how violent the bumps are here.
Yeah. Suffering them in...
Oh! Juha spun out! He's gone into the...
Oh! There, but it surfaced. And he's lucky not to blow the tires, because he was going quick and I guess the tires were quite warm.
Well... So the question now is he going to go to the pits?
Now. Junt is now 3 seconds behind Coxon. If I'm correct, that's what the HUD indicates.
Having a look at the replay here of Juha's incident. Yeah, he just locks up and spins around. Didn't hit anything, thankfully. So he's in 6th place now. Yeah, Yunt is definitely closing. Let's have a look and see what the... 2.9 seconds. So we should keep an eye on this group and see if any pit stops are in the offing. Coxon continuing on. He's got a couple of cars he has to deal with up here. One of them is Chacon. The other one is Del Piccolo, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, Kowalski just posted in the forum an update about his status, and he was not happy with the brakes at first until he learned how to do it, but he said he had a short but very fun race, looking forward to more racing action, and now rooting for the second Jordan on track.
Now Del Piccolo is, oh goodness! You just cursed him, he ran off the track.
Whoa, and while reversing he nearly hit David Junt.
Oh goodness, that's not going to be a popular maneuver, but he did...
Well, thanks God it did come out well, but I think we better follow someone else or we will curse the poor green Jordan.
Yeah, that was a bit too... Alright, so David Junt is now arriving at the very long hairpin, and you can see just ahead of him Coxon. The gap is about 3 seconds now, so it's leveling off. It's not dropping any further.
And Janek also has got back some of the distance that he lost to Wilkes in whatever incident he had, because he's now only 5 seconds behind when he was like 15 some laps before, or 10 seconds.
That's true, yes.
Or maybe he did 4 tires and we missed that.
It's interesting that Del Piccolo had that incident because he's on new tires.
Yeah, but on new tires, but with the pressure to have to push.
True.
Because he has to get back that time that he spent in the pit lane. And he knows he is on fresh tires and can do well. So maybe it just was a slight loss of concentration or small error. And with these cars and the speeds that they are going, that's all it takes.
Okay, the gap is now 3.5 seconds between Yunt and Coxon. So we're over half distance. There's still plenty of time to go, but at some point Yunt is going to have to mount a challenge. And it'll be interesting to see if it's done in the pit lane or on the track.
So there's the Piccolo now coming to Bruno Chacon, which is not for position. He is going to lap him. But it's going to be a complicated thing because the Williams is so much quicker in the straights that Bruno will have to cooperate a bit. Look at Bruno, who started 21st and is now in 8th position. And I would bet that his car doesn't even have a single scratch in the body.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I maybe, but yeah, he definitely is a person who values finishing. I've never been a fan of being a kamikaze driver myself because it's no fun.
Well, it's a challenge. I mean,
it's
a bit like the same thing with those people who like to run long distances, marathons and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm also the kind of sprinter. I don't have the patience for that, but you gotta give the devil its due. I mean, it's very challenging. The fact of just saying, look, I'm not quick, but my challenge is this one, and then standing up to it, that's great to see.
I remember when I was in high school, I had the choice between track and field and cross country, and these cross country guys were just running until they puked out in the wilderness, and I'm just like, yeah, I think I'll be a sprinter instead, thanks.
Yeah, at least it's over quicker, no? Rising to be indeed quicker because he has put a difference of 3 seconds between him and Juha after being able to overtake.
Yep.
But Juha is still in points paying position. And there is not much of a threat for him yet from Gabriel Del Piccolo.
Oh, Del Piccolo has another spin just as I'm looking at him. You see, every time you say his name, something happens. So you gotta not say his name. The driver of the green car is in 7th place.
Something like that.
Yes, something like that.
The quick Italian or something like that.
Well, I hope everybody's enjoying the commentary. I'd be lying if I said that I was firing on all cylinders right now. I just got back from a 10-day trip to Japan to visit family, and I'm still trying to get my body clock back aligned to this time frame. Up like yesterday, I kept catching myself saying it was the next day, I was thinking it was Sunday when in actual fact it was Saturday. And I caught a cold on the plane too on the way back, so I'm fighting that if I sound a bit stuffy. So thank you for your patience and your understanding. Hopefully, although I think we've done a decent job of being animated during the race, but definitely wanted to start the ISO calendar and our broadcast effort with a strong performance, and we really appreciate everybody tuning in to watch.
So now Richard Wilkes coming to lap Gabriel Del Piccolo. He moves away and makes it easy for him. And I think Gabriel must be quite frustrated right now, because he probably had in mind doing quite well on that second part of the race with the fresh tires, and those small errors with the spins, they have set back him quite a bit.
Yeah, they basically nullified any advantage they would have given him.
There's still a lot of race to go in terms of what can happen, because with these cars anything changes pretty quickly. Whoa! Right, Vidal just coming out of the corner, nearly touching there the wall. I mean, he's not certainly leaving anything in the table. Does he think he can catch up with Brian Janek?
I don't know. We'll have to watch the interval. The interval right now is 47 seconds.
Yes, but you need to bear in mind that these cars are, I mean, they are like ballistic long-range weapons. I mean, you can be putting pressure on someone even if you are 40 seconds behind him. Obviously, it's not the same pressure as if you are 1 second behind. That's obvious. But the fact that you know someone is there with a good rhythm right behind you, with the speed that these cars have, it's like, I mean, slightest error and the distance can drop dramatically. And if he was going quicker than you, and you have made an error, you have spun, you are only 10 seconds in front, and with hot tires after that spin, well, I can tell you that wears you out mentally very quickly.
Well, Ray Riddall definitely showing his talent for being consistent. He may have had one incident that we didn't pick up earlier, but by and large, he's doing very good.
And that could very well have been a pit stop.
Yes, could have been. We just missed it.
There was quite some action in the track at that moment. So this is Richard Coxon minding his own business, and David Jan 3 seconds behind. And it's, I don't know, these guys are playing like the rubber band. David is never really behind. Never really on Richard's tail, and never really on a safe distance. It's a bit of a mid-range fight here, though it's down to 2.5 seconds right now as we speak.
Well,
it's
that's
51 laps, and unless I'm mistaken, the leader has not pit. Sorry.
No, I don't think he's pitted yet. So.
Well, David Jan neither, but this is the point where the differences between the cars or the tires, the choice, can start to become evident, and that's another half a second that David Jan has cut from the leader.
All right, so don't change the channel yet. We could be seeing something developing here.
And I think that David Jan is starting to show off his cards.
Yes, it is show and tell time. Oh yeah, look at that. He's
there out of the corner.
He is definitely pushing.
Yeah, and look at that. I mean, that spin and the fact that Richard acknowledged that the pressure has made him jump the difference 0.2 in a moment. Let's see how David Jan responds to that. Because he has very likely been all the race testing Richard, like, I'm getting close, let's see what happens. And Richard responds by going maybe a bit quicker and letting David Jan know, okay, cook your tires because you're not getting any closer. But at this point, with these laps to go, and with the fact that despite the speed of these cars, everything here is long term, and you have to plan your move well ahead. If David is starting to make his move and to put pressure, and he says, okay, I have now enough load of fuel to be able to start pushing the tires, then whatever happens now is what we might see in the end.
Yeah, the gap is increased now, so yeah, it's right. Richard is able to respond in kind, seemingly at will. As far as engine comparison goes here, the number 23 car that Yunt is driving, the Minardi, has a Ferrari V12, and the leader's car, Richard Coxon, is a V10 Judd.
So now bear in mind that what's going on between these two, the mind games between these two is the following. David Yunt has upped his game. Richard Coxon has replied. So there's now 3.5 seconds. Okay, fine. It would seem that the incident is over at this point because David Yunt should acknowledge that Richard is quicker, but it's actually not the end of it, because if David, now 20 laps from the end, keeps the pressure, a very different game altogether will start to develop here, and that's who can keep that rhythm and at the same time keep the tires in one piece. Because one thing is that Richard Coxon can sprint and get away from David Yunt in 2 or 3 or 5 laps, but if David is constant in his rhythm, if his tires can stand to that, can the tires under Richard's car do the same?
Yeah, that's the kick.
And they are under 3 seconds now. So that's maybe the next thing that David Yunt is going to put to a test, because if Richard sprints and gets away, but then all of a sudden the difference starts decreasing, there's the answer to the question. Richard cannot stand that rhythm without cooking his tires.
Okay, interesting. So there is a game of chess going on here. Three seconds even now.
Whoa, and that was close to the wall for David Yunt. Power sliding there out.
He's done that a few times now.
2.5 seconds.
Oh boy, so just that quickly, he slices a half a second off again. .7 at this point.
It depends on the part of the track what they are, but it was 2.3 flashing one moment ago. They are going through the straight line now to the main straight, so it's 2.7 at this point. We can compare next lap.
Well,
and I'll give you in a moment. I'll check and give you in a moment the lap times.
Okay.
So yeah, for example, there you see how the rubber band is playing out. I don't know if you can put on the screen the lap times table, if you can, from Richard Coxon.
All right, they're on the screen now.
Okay, so as you can see, the 129s are 3 laps together. They are lap 46 to 48, 129. Those are the laps when Richard was actually responding to David's attack. Then when the distance had increased, Richard settled again on a slower rhythm, 130, 130, 131. Then David Yunt mounted a next attack, and there goes Richard back to 129s. But now he's up to 130. And the question is, like I said, well, can he do more than 3 or 4 laps in 129 to keep the distance?
All right, now we're looking at David Yunt's numbers, and his best lap of the race was just 4 laps ago.
Yeah, when he was doing his small attack on Richard.
And he's back now into the 130s with the occasional 129.5 or 4.
Yeah, those are, like I said, there are small tests. I mean, if you're just watching the cars on TV, you would not realize anything that is going on. I mean, the distance is apparently more or less the same. But I can tell you that both drivers are very well aware of the game that they are playing. You can see how David Yunt speed ups and Richard responds. and they are testing each other, and that's the fantastic and very interesting nature of Formula One. And it's a pity that if you don't know these things, if you don't get them from someone who can realize them, then you would completely lose it. But they are fighting. I mean, they've been fighting all the race. They are not just following each other like a small train and saying, oh, okay, let's go to the end of the race. They have been hitting each other with the globes. They just have been doing it very subtly.
Yeah, it's a very different kind of motor racing excitement. Uh-oh, Yuha Boss is slowing down. What happened there?
He's missing a wheel.
Oh, no!
That's the hurts.
That's bad news indeed, and the McLaren people will not be happy. Let's take a look at a replay. Let's see if we can find out what happened. He's tooling around, obviously. Oh, okay, here we go. We might see what happened. Yeah, here's the result. Running it back so that we can get an idea of what happened.
Nah, he tried to force it into the corner with the tires locked, and it didn't work.
Oh.
He lost the wheel there in the barriers.
Goodness.
That wheel's not getting back.
No, it is not, and that's really unfortunate for Yuha.
And that would put Bruno Chacon one position away from the points-paying one.
Yeah, he's in the pits now, Yuha, but he's not going to get that wheel back, unfortunately. Oh, it appears Del Piccolo's had another off.
And hang on, because David Jant is now less than 2 seconds away from Richard Coxon.
Oh, goodness.
1.5, 1.3, 1.2. So after testing him for a long time, it seems that he's now on the move. And all those little crabs that they had been having in the distance, that was how David Jant was testing what Richard Coxon was able to do with the car. Look at that. 1.5. And he's mounting his attack right now.
Yeah, no question about it.
He wanted to know how quick can Richard go and how many laps can he do that. And once he's satisfied with the information, he has been calculating how many laps he needed to be from the end before he could mount his attack. And there you go. Now the hostilities have unleashed.
Okay, everybody buckle up.
Whoa, he's really,
he's
really giving it.
Gilles Villeneuve style of driving here. He's power sliding, and he's definitely not going to leave anything on the table. And he's got 12 Italian cylinders behind him to help. God, look at he just flies through that corner. That's one of the faster corners of the track. He takes it right out to the wall, right near the tires. And Jant's the kind of guy who can do this lap after lap.
Under 1 second now.
Wow. All right. Fantastic.
You gotta take your hat off.
Yeah, you do. I mean, this is another...
Because he's doing this to no other than Richard Coxon, who is not exactly the slowest or less intelligent guy around.
Nailing that throttle coming out of the corner. 59 laps now. Well, this is the 59th lap, so in another 3 laps there will be 20 laps to go.
And now the interesting part is to see, because Richard is more or less holding on. I mean, he allowed David Jant to come to that distance, or at least he was not prepared to start getting quicker until David was this close. But now he's like able to keep that seconds of a difference. So the question now is if Richard can keep his tires together while trying to go this quick.
Closing in on Bruno here. I'm sure Bruno will make room for them, but one small thing, you know, as courteous as Bruno is, occasionally he can slow the car down more than people are anticipating. Yeah. And we've seen it a couple of times in this race. Sometimes it can catch you by surprise. So, hopefully, this won't be an awkward situation. I picture Coxon in his room driving right now and trying not to listen to his cat Oreo meowing.
Or his new dog.
Or his new dog making noise. Maybe he has noise-canceling headphones so he can't hear them.
I think he probably has instead the door well closed.
That too. All right, Bruno's making room. Oh, we have a car spun out that looks like the other. That's the other Delara. Yes, it's Ray.
Right.
It's Ray. The car looks like it's in one piece. Whether it is damaged or not is another matter. He's driving very slowly, so that would lead me to believe he's got a problem. Let's take a look at a replay. This is yet another situation where a braking zone was missed, it appears. Oh, it looks like he scraped the wall coming down. So when he applied the brakes, maybe something locked up. Yeah, it just drove the car clear, like right alongside the wall, and he managed to scrape it to a halt. So he's going to have some kind of damage on the left-hand side of that car. So that's probably why it's crabbing right now. He got it back going, and he's driving at a very gingerly pace right now. He might actually have a look. It looks like he might have. Yeah, he's got broken left rear suspension. You can tell because as he was braking for that corner, the left rear was locking up.
Maybe it's a blown tire.
Or maybe it's a blown tire. Yeah, you might be right.
With some luck, it's a blown tire, and he can just
watch. Yeah, see right here.
Keep going.
See the mark that it's leaving. So yeah, it looks like it's his left rear tire that's blown. So if he can get it back to the pits, he should be able to get that tire changed and probably finish the race. Let's hope.
Another interesting thing is that the last lap by Richard was 1:30, and he didn't make any errors. So I think arrived to the point where he can try to go quick and keep his tires together. So, but I think that the same thing has happened to David Junt because he's now falling to 1.2 seconds away. They both have probably exhausted the opportunity, the window opportunity of their tires. Now they have to cool down a bit.
I don't know. David Junt doesn't look like he's playing it cool.
Well, he obviously wants to give the pressure on Richard, but the lap times are telling. I mean, they are not going as quick as they were. Not a huge difference, but not as quick.
It's 1.1 now.
And we're on lap 62. There's still 20 to go.
20 laps to go.
Which is 1/4 of the race.
Oh.
Yeah, a quarter of the race.
I can't imagine, I mean, especially the way I feel right now, just really kind of out of body and just kind of half healthy. I can't imagine doing this for 82 laps.
Yeah.
No offense to these guys, but I'm glad I'm in the booth and not doing that. I want to store up my energy for 150 laps in the Valley of the Sun next Sunday. We've got to do a good job for Parnelli Jones and Vel Militage, right?
Yeah, that won't be easy at all. I can tell you, it's a very narrow track with very powerful cars, and well, short track racing already in the early 70s with the powerful cars was really a big challenge. I mean, those cars were designed obviously for the glory at Indianapolis, and they could race elsewhere, but that was not what they were made for.
No, but should be a fun series for sure. It's like Junt's cooling the car a little bit now.
Yeah, you really need a driver of the quality of Richard Coxon to be able to withstand that. I mean, that sudden change in rhythm and that pressure and all that well, that suffices to make nervous many people.
Okay, so Ray is back on the track, but he's certainly not driving with the vigor that he was earlier. Yeah, he's tooling around. So
let's have a look at his steering wheel when he's in the straight, and see if it's straight or bent. That would be telling. Now in this, it seems quite straight and solid there. Maybe he's just taking it easy.
He may realize that there's nothing to be gained by going flat out right now.
Yeah, probably.
And he's just trying to get it to the end.
What he has to do is make it to the finish and collect.
Whoa. Shoot! Yeah, he wants that top 5.
Yeah.
Here comes.
Again.
What?
Now he really has to go slow. Oh, he's letting the leaders pass.
Yeah, he's letting the leaders go by.
Yeah, now he has to make the room for David Jent, who can't be that far away. There he goes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, if I were in his position, I'd probably be soft pedaling it too, because you got a top 5 finish on the plate. You're lucky that you didn't damage the car too much in that incident. So
yeah, but
I think he's doing the right thing.
He's doing the right thing, but then, and let's see if you see the same way as I do. Sometimes going slow is so difficult because you don't, if you don't really get into a rhythm, if you don't really go for it a bit, it's like the car is not working at all. Your setup is made for going quick.
I know.
Reference points are gone for that, and all of a sudden it's as if it doesn't work well together.
Yeah, your timing gets off. Things feel weird, and then you become accident prone. I agree. It's not ideal.
One of the guys who in real Formula One who was told to be really the master at changing rhythm was Michel Samaha.
Really?
That's the guy who, yeah, I mean, he obviously had many strengths. He was an absolutely technical driver, very engineer-minded and tireless worker. But what people say about him is that his changes in rhythm were amazing. I mean, he could be doing constant laps in one time, and on the next stint going constant laps like 3 seconds different, and always be there, constant. And I mean, he could adapt so well to all kind of rhythms and change them in the middle of the race. And that's really important, very disconcerting for the other drivers. Look what happened some laps before when John mounted his attack. I mean, that's quality driving, your ability to suddenly go that much quicker and preserve the car, and Richard Coxon to respond to that.
Well, we have another black and yellow car that's on the charge now. Brian Janek is closing in on Richard Wilkes. The gap is now 2.2 seconds.
Oh, yep. And they are fighting for one of the hottest properties in the results table, which is the 3rd place.
Yes, the right to spray champagne from the smallest step.
Yeah, because, you know, 1st and 3rd place, they are something. 2nd, it's like, yeah, I mean, 2nd or 3rd, you didn't win the race. It's not like when you're fighting between the 2nd and the 3rd, it's always great to have a 2nd, but it's a podium nevertheless, and it's not a win. But being 4th or being 3rd, that's a world of a difference.
Oh, yellow flag! Was that what I thought it was? Could it have been Wilkes? Yes, it was! Richard Wilkes has done it. It was the same thing again. He ran off the course, missed his braking zone, and once again, another driver's a benefactor. My goodness.
Yeah, that was handed to Brian Janek in a silver platter.
Well, I got to give credit to Wilkes for having the presence of mind to turn right there when it was clear that he was not. Oh, he touched the barrier there slightly, but it was clear he wasn't going to make the corner.
That's not a crippling thing.
Yeah, but you have to make a split-second decision to not go for the corner and take the escape road, and you can't when you have a very narrow opportunity to do that. You have to make the commitment
He
at the
must
right
be
time.
cursing his luck right now because
Yes.
the podium was on the cards. And it's unlikely that he will have the time in the remaining laps to get the difference back.
And Brian Janek from Detroit, Michigan is in third place now in his Minardi. His form just keeps getting better and better in sim racing. I know he's very enthusiastic, enjoys this very much.
And he's one of the biggest supporters of this mode.
Yes,
he absolutely loves the strategy and the driving of these cars.
Meanwhile, let's look back at the front here to see if Yunt is... It's 2.6 seconds now, so I'm thinking that he's saving up for one more good... Oh, goodness! He's... Oh, did you see that? Yunt just came so close to spinning out. He literally dirt tracked it through a corner. So...
Now I was looking at the times now.
Oh.
But he has been playing with those walls. Oh, yes, now I'm seeing it.
Yeah, he's definitely driving on the ragged edge.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of people that can go sideways through a Phoenix turn with a Formula 1, so... Yeah, but that has set him back to 4 seconds behind, and if he was planning on doing another attack towards the end of the race, this is not going to improve his options.
Yeah, definitely not.
It's quite uncharacteristic from him to make such mistake.
Well, we have seen races in the past where David Yunt loses patience. Typically it's in traffic where he's trying to get around somebody and he just loses patience after a while. So as I would say that is one of his Achilles heels, if any, is that he is prone occasionally to losing patience and making an impulsive choice. But then again, most drivers are like that.
Most ambitious drivers, at least.
Yeah, most ambitious drivers who want to do well.
It's also fair to say that this is not exactly the most telling or typical race in the calendar. This and Monaco are
absolutely not.
Something on their own, and like I said, these cars were never designed to race here. They were designed to race on open flat tracks with good asphalt and all that. So these are the survival races. Like I said, the races where you can win or lose a championship by scoring here, but they are certainly not the easiest, and it's something you must show here your ability, your workmanship to soldier on with this. Be there at the end and score points, and then fight for honors in the other races. I'm thinking
David Yunt. Oh my goodness, he just came very close to clipping a barrier similar to Yuha.
That looks to me like overcooked tires, and
yeah, his tires
there's the sign of pit request. Hang on, because
he's coming into the pits.
Into the pits.
Yes, he is.
What has happened is that he has cooked his tires in the previous fights, and well, he's having to take a stop here. Wonder what will be the case for Richard Coxon, because I'm going to check his lap times just to see if he's also having some. No, he's steady at 1:30.
And here comes Brian Janek out. Oh goodness, he's gonna possibly. Yes, he picks up second place. This is going to be interesting because now you have a swap of the teammates from Minardi.
Yeah, but David is on fresh tires.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see if how quickly he can overhaul Brian.
Yeah, though, I guess there will be no team orders here at all.
No, I don't think there are Minardi team orders.
Brian is going to hang the closed placard there on the rear wing of his car.
Yeah. Thou shalt not pass.
Something like that.
All right,
Well,
so we're
he's
coming
very
up
aware
to
of it because he's hitting it hard now because he knows that David has just come out from the pits with the new tires, and these tires, while they are hot when they come out of the pits, there's something funny that goes on with them, which also happened to the real tires, and that's they go through heat cycles. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So when they come out of the pits, the tires are very hot, they have grip, but if you push them too much in that moment, you can damage them. So what happens here is that you have to go quick, but settle on a rhythm, and 3-4 laps into your next stint with those tires, they settle on a lower temperature cycle, and they are perfect then to go as intended. And Brian knows that. He's pushing hard now.
Yeah,
and
he
look
really
at that.
is.
I mean, there's a bigger gap now with David John than when David came out of the pits.
No, Brian's really pushing it right now. You can tell just by the way he's throwing the car.
I mean, obviously, David John is also well aware of that situation, and he just has to have the patience. And when the tires settle down in 2, 3, 4 laps at most, then he can push them and well, do what he tried to do with Richard Coxon previously.
Meanwhile, Coxon is still leading. Coming up on Del Piccolo now to put a lap on him.
Yeah, Gabriel is seeing now the blue flag. Oh, Ray Riddle is in the wall.
Oh, no!
He just crashed. I can't believe that. What happened there? Oh, he had no front wing in the replay already. And
yeah, he lost his front wing, and I'm guessing he's going to understeer into a barrier here.
And pay attention to this. Bruno Chacon is now in 6th position thanks to that.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, shoot! He just slams into the tires. Oh, my goodness. That's awful. I mean, especially to drive all this distance and then have that happen. That's a real punch
really
to the gut. Too bad. So yes, Bruno's in 7th, but he will eventually be scored in 6th. So perseverance paying off for the Brazilian once again. Number 6 to match the 6th place he's in, or will be in. Historically,
yeah, and watch him out in the USAC series, because if he is so constant and keeps his finishes, I mean, that series was really rewarding for the constant people. Roger McCluskey won in 73 with 1 win, that's true, but based completely on his reliability and constance. And well, I would be very much surprised if Bruno isn't able to finish in the top 10 at least in that series easily.
We'll see. Bruno coming around on the last corner now. No, that's not the last corner. Sorry, that's a long hairpin. Eventually, he'll jump up to 6th. Oh, David Young is off the course.
Yeah, just watch it.
Oh my goodness.
What's that? What's the matter here? He's going quite slow and overcooked tires. Let's see. I'm on the replay now.
Yeah, I'm watching the replay. I'm waiting for oh man, the back end just comes all the way around as he applies the throttle exiting a corner. My goodness. What's going on there? The one nice thing about having so few cars in the track is that you can make a rescue. You can make a recovery attempt without worrying about hitting anybody. Most of the time.
Yeah, and recoveries here with close barriers are not exactly the easiest thing.
So we have 10 laps to go now. And this has been a fantastic drive for Richard Coxon. I mean, he started the race. Let me look back. He started the race in 12th place and crept up the standings as people had their problems. So he took advantage of OPP. But as he rode up the list, then he basically got into the same situation as Dave Miller had been in, and people took various shots at him, but he's been able to keep cool through the race and respond to challenges, most notably the challenges that have been issued by David Yunt. And now that David Yunt has fallen by the wayside, there's too much space between Coxon and Janek, and it's basically for him to bring the car home. A really good first race of the year for Richard, assuming they can bring it home these next few laps.
And it seems to me that after his pit stop, David Yunt never managed to really get the car into a good rhythm. Watching his lap times now, he managed to go down to 128.8, and then at some point there was a pit stop, and the lap times have been quite bad since then.
Well, I'm looking at the clock too here, and we've got 8 minutes 44 seconds left in the race. So the question becomes, which will we hit first, the clock or the lap count? I don't know.
Well, 1.5 minutes per lap.
Yeah.
Going to be tight.
Yeah. We may see the race end prior to the 82 lap distance. We'll see. So Yunt's soldiering on in fourth. I'm sure he's really disappointed. But early on in the season, and those are good. Those are 3 points that are valuable. Del Piccolo fifth. That's 2 points. And Bruno's up to sixth now, which is 1 point.
Yeah, well, David's position isn't under threat by Gabriel Del Piccolo, who is several laps down. So at this point, obviously, David is just trying to collect points, be safe, and be there at the end in that fourth position. And, you know, this is one of those situations where settling here for fourth and driving it home could be really important at the end of the championship. Those points are sometimes what makes the difference. And, well, here's Richard Coxon about to lap him.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, don't talk about closeness in points with. I think it wasn't it Prost that got beaten by a half a point by Niki Lauda.
Yep.
For his third championship. So yeah, don't. I mean, that was certainly. I'm sure that one stung.
Well, Lauda is, together with Alain Prost, one of my favorite drivers. I mean, from Formula One champions, my favorites have always been those both, because they were so damn calculating. I mean, they were by no means the quickest or most talented guys around, but they had that special intelligence, or even the ability for politics, as Alain Prost, where they took the game to a different level. I mean, they understood very well that racing was not just winning the championships, was not just the track and being quick there. And it was much more than that. It was a long-term strategy thing. And when Niki Lauda, going back to what you were talking about, came back from retirement to go for McLaren and won the championship, which, if I remember correctly, he won it against Alain Prost.
Yes.
He completely destroyed Alain Prost mentally, and that's one of the great things about Prost. I mean, he learned the lesson and he applied it later. I mean, he rose to his feet from that big blow. Getting the blow, something that happens to anybody. Question is if you rise up again, and man, how did Alain Prost go up in his feet again? We're nearly there, 6 laps to go. Rich has taken it easy. There's absolutely no threat in him.
Yeah, 6 laps to go or 5 minutes. Whichever you think we're going to hit first.
I think that will be the 5 minutes.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, Richard's taking it really easy. He can he can see that clock as easily as we can. And he probably is just like, well, at this point, shoot, I'm just going to tool it home and wait for the clock to run out. No sense in driving just to make that 82 lap count.
Yeah, and a finish like this might seem a bit anticlimactic, but I hope that our spectators have been able to enjoy this and see how the fact... Oh, what happened to Bruno Chacon right now? Did he...
Oh,
no! I can't believe that!
Oh, Bruno, no!
Oh my god, when lapping David John... Oh no!
Oh no!
Well, his car is still working, but I mean, without front wheels, that's not going to steer. Oh my god, that's really bad.
God, that's a heartbreaker.
He's
He's probably sitting there right now, just going, just cannot believe that this happened, and he's out of the race.
I'm really sorry to see that because he really deserved that point.
He's not going to get the point now, is he? Because he didn't finish.
I think he won't. Yes, you have to finish to score the point.
Or is it a 90% rule?
I'm not sure.
Well, that's up to the admins.
I'm not. Well, the championship rules are. Oh, David Jant.
God, people are just limping home now.
Yeah, and David Jant is. Well, he just texted me and he said brakes gone. That's what happened to him. He cooked the brakes, and that's what made him slow down dramatically. He's now going slow, really slow without front brakes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that's what happened. He cooked them up and, well, they didn't last. So he's just limping around, hoping for the finish. He should be able to finish though, but...
I guess the question I would have is how close is Del Piccolo at this point?
One lap.
And it's a lap difference, so yeah, he's probably safe. But here comes Richard.
The speed that David is going... And Del Piccolo probably knows that because he's also watching
he can see
the difference shrink.
Yeah, you can see the interval dropping like a stone on his end.
Well, this is Formula 1. You will get drama till the end.
Yes.
And Del Piccolo is now pushing it hard, just in case.
He's got to be careful, though. He doesn't want to put it in the wall and give up those 2 points.
Yeah, well, like I was saying, I mean, even if it seemed anticlimactic, I hope that the spectators have been able to enjoy being able to watch behind the scenes what was going on, for example, between Richard and David John and all those fights in long range. It's absolutely great, but you have to know what's going on. And right now what's going on is that Gabriel Del Piccolo is probably watching the clock and hitting with his fist on the steering wheel, whereas David Jant is probably doing the opposite thing. He's with his hands in the air praying that the clock goes quicker.
I've been watching a lot of football playoff games the past few days, and it's hilarious when you get into a situation like this where there's a minute and change to go, and you could just milk the clock with timeouts and stuff. So that's essentially what.
To put things in perspective, Del Piccolo is lapping like half a minute quicker than David Jant at this point. Well, David is 1.55, 56 actually, nearly his last lap.
All right, so we're coming down now to 47 seconds. So if I'm right, there's probably going to be one more lap after this one because Coxon is going to cross the line. Well, no, actually, the clock is probably going to run out before he gets there.
Hang on, because I don't know if Del Piccolo is now in the same lap as David John. No, but that's only 20 seconds left.
It appears that we may be on the final lap here because if the clock runs out before...
Yeah, now look at that. Let's see if David Jones stops before the finish line, because if not, he could need another lap. No, he doesn't stop. So...
Clock is at zeros, so you're watching what is essentially the final lap of the race. Coxon is going to come around, and because the clock is at zero, he's going to take the checkered flag. Coming around now.
Piccolo is going now through the start-finish line, and let's see if he gets the checkered flag, because if he doesn't, he still can overtake David Jones in this next lap, or in what remains of the lap.
No, it looks like we're in the final lap now. Yeah, Coxon's continuing on, so...
No, Del Piccolo is slowing down. He must have got... No, not the checker flag. No, it was for the corner. Hang on, because this is going to be really dramatic. David Jones is going round. And Del Piccolo is going as quick as he can. Because until the leader goes through the lap, I don't think that he will be... that the race is over.
Yeah, the race is technically still going. Well, in any case, Coxon is about ready to take that checkered flag.
Yeah, but for the rest, the race will be over when they cross the finish line after the leader has done and ended the race. So that means that essentially Del Piccolo is still able to catch with David Jones, who is now going through the start-finish line, but it's not flagged because Richard Coxon hasn't gone through the start-finish line.
Yeah. All right, here comes Coxon through now. Around the corner, and this should be the race win for Coxon as he comes to the line.
And Del Piccolo is going to go through the start-finish line after Richard Coxon, which means he will get the checkered flag now also. No?
No, that's weird because the time has run out on the clock, and Coxon's continuing on. So apparently the time doesn't mean anything. So maybe we are going to 82 laps. Interesting.
Okay, maybe the rules were not set to that, but in that case, the results that count will be the ones from this last lap.
Well, if that's the case, Del Piccolo won't be happy if he comes around in front of... Well, he's got a lap difference on Yun anyway, so that's not going to matter.
No, he's in the same lap, I guess, as David Jones.
Not by what I'm seeing.
No? Ah, okay.
Yeah, he's a lap behind. So Coxon...
So he's 2 laps down on the leader, whereas David is only 1.
All right, so I'm going to guess now that Coxon's going to start the final lap, despite the fact the clock has run out. So yeah, that's something that the admins and the scrutineers will have to pay attention to.
Yeah, it's no big issue because we can always put the results of the lap when the time ran out, but it's weird that the race was not flagged at that point.
Yeah, we'll have to. Somebody's gonna have to check on that. And in any case, here's Richard coming around. This is his definitely for sure his final lap of the race. Fantastic drive, and really, I think showed one of the strengths that he has as a driver is that he is not easily riled by a driver behind him. He responds to pressure.
That's a car
another yellow
that's
flag.
David Jones, who is there, and now the clock turns yellow. Okay, that's a flag.
That was just a flag, yes. So Coxon coming around now. The final straight here, and then a couple more sharp corners, and he'll be the first ISO winner of 2020. Great drive from 12th place to capture the first win and 10 points in the championship. 10 points also for Dallara. Unfortunately, Ray is not part of that scheme. He had an accident earlier. 2 more corners to go for Richard Coxon. 1 and 2 coming off the corner. And there it is. Richard Coxon wins the Iceberg United States Grand Prix, drives clear into the runoff area.
Yeah, probably has had enough of this already.
Yes, I would think so. Brian Janek coming around now to take second place. A fantastic drive from Brian. Very consistent and definitely showing that he loves this mod and that he's a big fan of these cars.
And Richard Wilkes was clearly very close to him already.
Oh, yep. So there goes Brian taking, yes, and Richard Wilkes will take third place, and he takes the car clear to the wall after he crosses the line.
Bit of a frustration there, venting off.
That is what we call a rage quit.
Speaking of frustration, there's David Jan struggling now with the brakes.
Yes, but he's going to finish in 4th place. It appears that he's already crossed that line. So there's the Minardi team. A nice Polaroid there for the team back in Italy. Del Piccolo soldiers on to finish 5th, and he's going to be the last car to finish the race after Bruno Chacon had his incident very late, which is really unfortunate, especially after how consistently he drove. So if we look at the rest of the finishing order, the DNFs were Bruno Chacon, Ray Riddall, Juha Boss, Anders Nilsson, Dave Miller, Jan Kowalski, Adam Hackman, Timo Vermeersch, Mick Chapman, Jason Whited, David Jakes, Riley Blythe, Gianluca Desposito, Tim Hill, Mike Olson, David Saber, Pascal Mikola, Grant Riddall, and Victor Alcacer. So that was the Iceberg United States Grand Prix. Bit of a lull towards the end, but there was plenty of action interspersed throughout.
Yeah, well, that's what Formula One is about, because as you can see, even if there are a few cars on the track, it becomes really exciting because things can change so quickly, and many stories unfold during a race. So that was really quite exciting, and well, I hope that it will be less accidented in the following races. I'm sure that will be. I think the next one is Brazil. We're going to Brazil. That's a conventional track. It's a great one, and it should provide great racing there also. So now a small reminder for those interested, and that's in 15 minutes. The Phoenix race the user will be opening for people to ask for the extra car there, just in case they are interested. So stay tuned for that.
And we are joined in the booth by our race winner, Richard Coxon. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
The first
race at the end, though.
Yeah. So, bit of an odd end to the race because there was a situation there where the clock ran to 0, but the race continued. That must have been a bit nerve-wracking getting to the end, but
it were. Just had to relax again, stay focused.
So tell us about your race and the cat and mouse game you were playing with David Yunt through a good chunk of it. Looked like he was taking stabs at you here and there, but you were able to respond in kind.
Yeah, it was just a matter of looking after the car, driving at 90% all the time. So if he got a bit closer, or if anyone else did, just push a little bit harder. Then let the tyres recover again. So it was just all about managing them. But the tyres were brilliant. We still had lots of grip when I pitted the first time. I only made one stop, but when I pitted, I could have carried on, but I'd seen they'd pitted. So if I didn't react, I'd have probably lost the position. So
We're also joined by Richard Wilkes, who finished in third place. Bit of an eventful race for you, Richard. You had a couple of off-course excursions, but had the presence of mind to turn for those escape roads when it was clear you weren't going to make the corner.
That's true, Jason, that's true. It was not an easy race, and on hindsight, I think at points I was pushing a bit too hard. And yes, I kind of outbraked myself a couple of times. It's very hard to keep the concentration around here. And I guess I got carried away because I wasn't expecting to be fighting for the win or for the lead in the beginning. And unfortunately I made those mistakes, but I could keep my head cool, keep going, not hit anything, and fortunately I ended up on the podium, which is better than I even expected.
Yeah, I think myself, I could say I think Alberto too were really impressed with the split-second decisions that you made in those instances. Other people would have driven into the barrier or just froze at that moment, not knowing what to do. But your reactions in both of those instances were really good. We're also joined by Juha Boss, who soldiered on for the McLaren team for a little bit, but definitely not the best day for Ron Dennis's team. How was the race for you?
Well, I got out qualified by my teammate, and I ruined my start by missing second gear. The turn 1, I was like 8. Got all the way up to 5th or 4th, and then lost it a few times, and finally clipped the wall at 5 miles an hour. Really, but those better luck next time.
Well, I mean, this is a track that's very kind of anomalous in the schedule. I mean, it's one of these tracks that's an equalizer, and the tight confines cause huge amounts of attrition. So it's going to be a very different race at Brazil, I think, for round 2. But one question I have for everybody, what did you learn about tires in this race? Because that's obviously been the big talking point leading up to round 1.
You've
And that was
one at a time.
You've just got
Cox
to be
and
careful
Hugo.
on them.
Yeah.
If you respect them, they'll give you performance. It does promote you driving at less than 100%, which is brilliant because you hear endless interviews of drivers saying that's how we had to drive. So it's great that we can have that as well. I remember John Lacey saying after one race that he drove his car like it were a taxi. But yeah, it weren't as bad as I thought it was going to be. But Phoenix isn't a hard track on tyres. Brazil will be a lot different. There's a lot more high-speed corners, and so that'll be more of a test.
User was moved to your channel.
We're also joined by David Yunt, who finished in 4th place. I understand, David, that you ran out of brakes towards the end, and that's why we saw you kind of tooling around. That's probably pretty disconcerting on a track like this.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, this is the first full race on a new mod on AMS, but I don't know. Maybe I was a bit too harsh on the car, trying to really catch Richard, who was putting in some real nice lap times. As soon as I had managed the first 28, he immediately responded, and then at I think last sector, car pulled to the right. I either thought it was B flat spotting, but even when pitting, I was kind of sure it was the front brake. And then the right was gone, and then a few bit later, the left front was gone. And then at that stage, I had 60% reverse brake pressure, bias. Pressure was not that much. I think it was okay. I've had either 11 or 12 for the setting. I'm not sure anymore. Thought I had enough, but apparently I didn't for 10 laps. And then on the very last trundling around lap, even the rear right, I think, died. So I went down the escape route until nearly onto the wall. So it's a bit of shame going from battling for the race win to like twice like nearly dying in a wall because of like a really bad sideways moment, missing the wall so closely. And Bruno, I don't know, crashed when I just let him pass. So yeah, but I'm glad I'm finished and got those 4 points for Minardi.
Yeah,
Well, I can tell you that the battle that you had with Richard, we absolutely were delighted with it. We really enjoyed it a lot. I think we were able to read well between the lines what was going on when you were speeding up and Richard was responding, and how you were each other trying to read how fast and especially how long each other could push. Because we were thinking that you were testing Richard at points and trying to see both how quick he could go, but also how many laps he could keep doing quick laps, so that you knew if you could really get close to him and push for that move. It was really, really fantastic to see you both battling it, and I hope we were able to relay to the spectators what was going on.
Your channel.
Well, it was between testing and looking if I can actually keep up, because I wasn't sure what tires he was on, but I had trouble going to nearly halfway point. Then I pitted. I think I thought we had like a time limit, but it looked like we went the distance.
Yeah,
So,
the results would be, the official ones would be in lap 78, because you should have been flagged by then, but in the end you all ended in the same position, so it's okay.
Ah, that's true. Well, yeah, I pitted
Only
like
you suffered
around
2
that
laps
limit.
more, 4 laps more.
Don't mention it. But yeah, I tried to catch him up, but I always had a look down on my tire temperature. As soon as I looked like out of the hairpin and such, if I had like 170, I was very careful not to have too much wheel spin. So at the time I was testing, at the time I was trying, but I could never get really close to an overtake. So I was waiting, but it didn't happen. It was just happening on my side. The car let me down.
Well, so looking ahead to Brazil, the next round, what do you gentlemen think we can expect?
Oh, hang on. Sorry to interrupt you, because I see we're joined also by another driver here. No other than
yes.
Gabriele Del Piccolo. Ciao, Gabriele.
Ciao a tutti.
We're so happy to
my
hear
race
you.
was very tough because I suffered a lot of times bad flat spots on front left tire. So the car till the third quarter of the race had squared wheels, so the car was not right. The setup was fine, but I have to find the key about the right brake pressure.
Yeah, the brakes were a problem here. David Junt finished the race without brakes. He destroyed them.
I managed to finish with good brakes because I opened all the brakes channel, so I have the maximum of airfoil to the brakes.
One of the big differences, because you also raced with us in 2017, one of the big differences now are the tires that have been developed for this mod, according to all the information we were able to get. Richard Wilkes is responsible for that, and they really do drive like they did in the real thing. You have to take care of them, and you only have short bursts of moments when you can really push them. How did you find them? Did you find them very different from 2017? Did you like them? How do you think it's going to play a role in the championship?
Yeah, it's more difficult now because the tire have a lot of now we can run with 170 degrees, 180 degrees, and in the mod, in a factor mod of 3 years ago, the temperatures are very lower than this mod. This mod is more more difficult and more sensible to the tires. So the better way to go ahead with this mod, I think, is make a setup that you are stable from the start of the race till the finish of the race. So you have to try to manage to have a medium of a setup, not extreme on full tank or extreme on empty tank. So there is a lot of understanding about the tire consumption also, because I started, this was in 1991, in the history of 1991, was a track that they use D compound. I listened from the transmission of the broadcasting of 1991 race. So I used B on front and C on the back. So the tires for me are now very, very sensible.
Okay.
All right. Well, it's getting late for some of us. So real quickly, thinking about Brazil, the next round, I believe. What do you all think we can see? What are you expecting to see in that round? Different track, obviously.
It's a different track because you have long corners. You have not the walls near the track. So I expected to have more finishers, and I expect to have more cars on the same level on the race, because these cars are funny. If you have 20 HP or less, it doesn't affect too much. But the key is always the car balance. Is the key of all of the competitivity. So I'm expected that we have more competition, and we have also many cars that can fight close to each other.
Any other comments before we close out the broadcast?
I wish I could have top 10 quali pace again, and then we have another nice fight for, well, most of the front guys, because I saw some I think a good mix of bit slower driver with a bit better car to even it out, and Dave had a really good race until he retired. So it looked really good for mix. So I kind of hope we have that again, and I wish I have more fun with my Samsung 49-inch monitor. That was the first race with it, and it was amazing.
The cars will be a bigger effect to Brazil. At Phoenix, because of the nature of the circuit, power and aero isn't as important, but at Brazil it will be. There will be mixes in setups. Do you want to be quick on the infield or quick on the straights? There'll again be the tyres, what compounds do you use. It'll be exciting though. We're looking forward to it, I'm sure.
All right. Any last thoughts from my broadcast partner before we close out?
Well, it was a great race. I just hope that the others are only half as great as this one, and we'll have a fantastic season.
All right. Well, thank you to all the drivers for joining us in the booth, giving us your insights. It's always helpful and great way to cap off a broadcast. I'd like to remind everybody that next Sunday we start another series, the 1974 USAC National Championship. We start with the Phoenix 150, and that will be broadcast by Jonathan Asserclinth next Sunday and the green flag drops at 2000 hours. So, to recap, Richard Coxon wins the Iceberg United States Grand Prix, the first ISO race of 2020. Thanks everybody for tuning in. For my broadcast partner, Alberto Ibañez, this is Jason White saying so long from Phoenix. We'll see you in 1 week.